What's our order on things?
The usual. It's the same as everything else.
Alright, alright.
Oh, I probably need music. That'll work, maybe. Okay, what was I doing? This. Can you hear me typing right now?
Type again. I cannot. Try typing while you're talking.
You can't hear it while I'm talking either. My mic isn't
Oh,
set
then
like
now
that, so
I cannot.
that's beautiful. That's actually ideal. Okay, now that I made that post, I'm gonna turn the timer on.
Oh boy, let's go.
Oh, I hit the one without the timer again. There we go. I need to share my monitor.
Okay, you'll get it eventually. Oh, I should probably open up Twitch chat, huh?
Alright, let's see how many extra windows I can open up today.
All of the windows?
I got my Twitch
Let's stop
chat, I
playing.
got the extra PowerPoint window.
Here, I need to move my things around. I have my notes on one screen. Then screens and shit on the other.
Wait, is this the Overwatch theme song? It is. Okay.
Damn, are you rocking us to some good tunes?
I just picked video game soundtracks, and it went World of Warcraft, Witcher 3, and now Overwatch. So
World of Warcraft, Witcher 3, and now we're
Overwatch.
Overwatch.
Oh, next is
Sorry.
even a League song. Okay.
Oh shit, which one?
Demacia Rising. I
Uh,
don't know that I would
yeah.
pick like any of these other than maybe the Soul Cinder from Dark Souls 3. The StarCraft song's pretty meh. I don't know. I don't know about this music selection. I was like, I want iconic video game soundtracks, and this is what it gave me. And this is, it's okay.
See, I've been listening to like old game
Yeah,
OSTs.
that's what I thought that I was getting into. I figured like we'd hear some old Zelda songs and
Hmm.
something like that. Not a the Overwatch victory. Although the Overwatch victory theme is honestly really well composed. I don't know. What's on here that I don't really? Civilization 6 main theme, Assassin's Creed 2. Like there's a couple WoW songs. Guild Wars
I don't,
2. I don't know. Maybe.
I don't really fuck with any of those. I don't know.
Oh, the thing ended. Here's an intro video. All right, so welcome, ladies and gentlemen. A little bit late today. Can we get the Hello Kitty Adventures soundtrack? That seems like a pretty solid choice, honestly, better than some of the other ones. Anyway, welcome to the Recalled podcast. My name's Maristamatic. With me is my usual partner in crime, Kato.
Greetings, summoners. I am Kato, and have an exciting podcast as we took a week off, huh?
Yeah, we took a week off, so now we're gonna smash a whole bunch of stuff together and see what happens. Um, this week, we're gonna review week 5, preview. It's actually week 7 because of the bye week, and then we're gonna do mid-season awards. We've got a guest from every division who's gonna come on and talk with us, and we'll see what they have to say. We're gonna keep them top secret, I guess, until they show up or decide not to show up, as the case might be. Um, so yeah. Without any other ado, let's get started so that we're not here all night. Our diamond receipts from our God. Take a week off and this is what happens.
Words are hard, man. Words are hard.
The results from week 5. Landsneck with the 2-0 over UCO. Those thumb guys from Spy Kids with the big upset over good game losers. Return of the Middle Sticks 2-0 Sky Zero. Iron 5 took an 0-2 to Team Fish Taco, and Unlucky Retribution had a tough one against Graceland. That one went 2-1. Um, I'm kind of surprised to start with because we have bigger slides for the rest of them. But Unlucky Retribution and Landsneck both dropping games against the 2 college teams.
Definitely really interesting. I think that Snack dropping a game isn't as surprising. As I've been saying, I don't think that they were quite as good as their record indicated. And UCO has had some, really strong showings within some games, growing some big leads. They're finally able to finish out one game, not able to take the series, but, probably looking relatively good for the Broncos as they see if they can actually win a game. But I wouldn't expect. Yeah, I'm not particularly surprised. I don't think that Sneck is dropping games to the lower end.
Yeah, but Unlucky Retribution dropping the game to Graceland, that seems a little bit worrying, does it not?
It's definitely out of character. I see Unlucky Retribution as the very consistent, you know exactly what you're going to get from them, and they play to their level extremely often. And against Graceland, they just drop a game, and that's just. I don't think that that's great for this lineup because you expect them to be contending for like the top 4 teams within the league, and dropping a game to I think Graceland's in last place right now. It's just kind of not what you want to see from that lineup.
Yeah. So Return of the Middle Sticks bouncing back against Sky, that 2-0, honestly relatively dominating from Return of the Middle Sticks. Didn't look uh, super unconvincing, but bouncing back after their win against, or after their loss against GGL has to feel pretty good for Middle Sticks.
For sure. I mean, after they dropped the game to GGL, the first place team in the league, they needed a bounce back, and against one of the probably lower half teams within the league, this is definitely a game that they had to win. And they won it. It wasn't even close. Really well played to them, and good signs for them.
Yeah, and Sky kind of continues their up and down. They've they've beaten the teams that have we thought have been below them, but they've also lost against the top teams. At some point, they need to make that kind of big statement and turn it around.
For sure, if they want to make it to playoffs, then the way that they've been playing probably won't get them there. We really want to see some kind of a big statement win for them in the next few weeks, just to show that they're here to play and that they want to make it to playoffs.
The big one, unfortunately, off stream, but Thumb Guys upsetting GGL. Uh, did you get a chance to watch those games as they happened or review them at all?
I did not, which is heartbreaking. This is definitely a series I wanted to see live, but I wasn't able to, and Thumb's able to pull it out.
I will.
There's always the caveat.
Yes.
Right. GGL only had Yabyinda for game one. They had a substitute for game two and three, and didn't have Koala for any of their games. So these are historically the big carries for this team. So definitely showing that without those players there, they can struggle and lose to a thumb team that hasn't had a ton of success in the past, but definitely is happy to pick up this win.
All of the awards are at the end of the regular podcast to answer a question in the chat. And then, in terms of getting the games on stream, as far as I know, we're not streaming this week, so I have no control over it. So you'll have to ask the powers that be that exist beyond what I am. Um, because I was in control of that one week, we did the Team Fish Taco game, but it's completely up to the casters this week with what they want to do.
But yeah, either way, a really interesting upset. I'm not sure that this necessarily speaks to the downfall of GGL. Um, they'll likely continue to be extremely strong and bounce back from this, but definitely showing that they can bleed. Okay.
Sorry about that. Um, People coming in and out of my apartment, just making sure everything's okay. Our featured game of the week was Team Fish Taco. Able to demote Iron 5 even beyond that, I guess, was what I went for with the stream title. Down to Iron 6 now. But the 2-0 for Team Fish Taco it's encouraging for Team Fish Taco, but the way that it happened probably wasn't how they exactly wanted it.
Um, Yeah, no, it's definitely worth mentioning that I've been saying for a while that Team Fish Taco is probably better than their record indicates. They're definitely one of the stronger team fighting teams within the league, especially spearheaded by Puffles Mia in that mid lane, who's just been so dominant and always shows up to these team fights. That said, if you look at these gold graphs, if you look at the score lines, the Iron 5 had massive leads in both of these games and weren't quite able to close it out in the end. Ended up losing a key team fight in each game and just downhill from there. But um, either way, I think TFT is really glad to have picked up the win against the team that they're likely to contend with in playoffs. In the Iron Five, I don't think that they're happy to lose this week. I know I'm not happy to have lost against them, against the team that they had the opportunity to win. You can see a 10K gold lead in game one. That's the one on stream, and just weren't able to pull it out.
Yeah, and it's difficult, especially as Iron 5 now. You have to kind of sit back, like, what did we do right? We obviously were good at getting leads. We secured objectives. We did the things that we thought we needed to do to win. But can you clean up or can you kind of subvert that weakness that was shown on stream? It's going to be a really tough ask now.
For sure. I think that, there's a lot of things for both teams to take away from this week. A lot of good things and a lot of bad things. And it'll be really interesting to see going forward which team really takes those and is able to transfer them into wins down the line.
Yeah. So our diamond standings after week 5 now shaking out three teams tied at 4-1, all with different game scores. So it does break apart. Plus the head to head. I don't know exactly how if this is ordered correctly or not. It probably is, knowing Silverhammer. But GGL, Return of the Middle Sticks, and Unlucky Retribution at 4-1. Got a trio of teams at 3-2 with Landsnack, Team Fish Taco, and Iron 5. And then Sky Zero and Thumb tied at 2-3, and then Graceland and UCO bringing up the bottom. Um, right now, playoff cutoffs 3-2. That sixth spot, and if you're Sky Zero and Thumb, even Thumb winning the last 2 weeks, not enough to get them basically any ground in the standings thus far.
Definitely, though they will be playing, some of those teams that are above them relatively soon, as well as some of these teams will be playing against each other. I think Thumb, if they continue to win games, definitely has a shot at making it into the playoffs. Looking at the 3-2 teams, the Iron Five have lost, a couple of series that weren't that great. They didn't look particularly good in them. So it'll be interesting to track to see if they're able to maintain that quarterfinals position, as well as Sneck, who, dropping the game to UCO this week, and having some not particularly strong performances. I believe they're going up against the Iron Five this upcoming week, so I might expect to see them to fall a little bit.
Yeah, so you're looking at the loser of Iron Five and Sneck, excuse me, this week. We'll cover it a little bit later, but the loser of that game may be in a little bit of trouble, and Sky and Thumb will have that opportunity to try to jump up the standings.
Agreed.
Our platinum results from week 5. OGR with the 2-0 over the Meat Beats. Team name here with the 2-1 over Schme in kind of the surprising result, I think. Sensei Squad 2-0'd iTown, and Kings of Baron with a 2-0 over GSM.
Yeah, and honestly, a few surprising results here. Um, the Meat Beats dropping another series here down the stretch to OGR, and then team name here both picking up the 2-1 against the up until now undefeated Shme.
Yeah. So Kings of Baron picking up their first win against GSM. Just wanted to highlight because I think a lot of people are really baffled by the fall of GSM in Platinum Capped, and um, Kings of Baron, not one of the teams that we expected to be the strongest coming in, uh, but they're the ones with Mowgli, right? I hope I'm not.
Yeah, they do have Mowgli on them.
Okay, so with Mowgli, picking up a 2-0 over GSM helps them pick up their first win and get out of the cellar.
Yeah, I think we might end up talking about it a little bit more later, but it was kind of funny that Kings of Baron have now had their second week with Mowgli. In week one, they put him on some supportive tanks, and they ended up losing. I said that I wanted a more carry role, a more carry look, more damage to come out of the jungle for them. Uh, and they end up picking a lot more damage for Mowgli in this series. He doesn't play particularly well. His score lines are pretty not great, but they still ended up winning, so I don't know. It'll be really interesting to see if Kings of Baron are able to continue this and bring it into their next week. But GSM has just been on the down and out, and at this point, you're not even sure if they'll end up taking a single series.
Yeah. Um, the big, I think this was the biggest upset, at least in my opinion, last week. But team name here with a 2-1 over Schmet um, definitely helps. It definitely shakes up the standings. Team name here kind of punching up and able to equal Schmet. Granted, Karasuda got Callista in at least one of those games, so you have to kind of question picks and bans, but still a big win for team name here.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising that teams are still giving Karasuda that Callista pick that he's just shown so much power on. And Shma ends up dropping the series to. Yeah, I don't think anyone expected
He
this
actually
series to
played it
go
all
this way.
3 games.
They gave it to him
Interestingly,
all 3 games.
yeah, the first game they made him go 1-8. I'm reading
Oh,
the stats right now, but then the second two
okay.
games he bounced back, went 6-0, 6-2. So
Hmm. Still definitely a surprising result. I don't think anyone was expecting it to go that way. And team name here is now 2-2 after this week, and contending for that playoff position.
yeah, and then our game of the week. Oh my God, Our game of the week was OGR against the Meat Beats, which we expected to be a pretty closely contested series, and it wound up OGR just kind of steamrolled them, honestly.
Yeah, the meat beats this week getting Seismic back, but unfortunately for them, it didn't seem like he had had as much practice or they had as much coordination as they had, before he ended up missing that week. So it'll be interesting to see if down the line they're able to regain what they had in the beginning of the season. As OGR is quickly becoming a force within this league. Taking the win off of the meat beats is actually massive for the standings.
Yeah, so our standings, again, the color coding's kind of strange, but the top four teams make playoffs only, just four.
Agreed.
So we're looking right now. Sensei Squad undefeated 4-0. Shmen OGR at 3-1 look like the next echelon of teams. Maybe even OGR able to contend with Sensei Squad up there at the top. But then you've got Meat Beats and Team Name here both at 2-2, right on that borderline. And then iTown, Kings of Baron, and GSM with a little bit of work to do.
For sure, and within a league of 8 teams where only 4 teams make it out, if you're one of these 1 and 3 teams, it's almost too late to come back into it. You really need to just win every single game from here on out to really have a shot at it. Um, that said, if the meat beats are continue their downward spiral, they've lost the last 2 weeks, then that might be a team that you're able to leapfrog over and make playoffs.
Sorry, my apologies, a little
No,
bit
no
cough there.
problem.
Jumping into Bilgewater, then into Gold. Weird flex, but okay with a 2-1 over HSG. G5 2-0 Ghost. Middle sticks to career business against UCO. Maximum effort with a 2-1 over Hog. And Sleeper Diamonds took a forfeit win over AVRM. There's really one game that sticks out, but let's talk about Flex just kind of hanging on against HSG. And this seems to be the way that Flex is operating this split is they come in kind of as favorites, but they seem to drop games against teams that they shouldn't.
I mean, they're kind of favorites, but it just depends. Like a flex that shows up to play shows up and is extremely strong, and it's hard to see what teams are able to beat them. But then there's this different flex that shows up that just I don't know, drops some easy games or some games that we would expect to be easy. And it's really hard to really get a beat on how strong flex actually is.
Yeah, also worth noting was the game one of this series was a forfeit win for Flex, and then HSG kind of cobbled together a roster for their last two games. So without their typical bottom lane, it looks like they moved some players around the map. I think Mehuli played support. No, he didn't. He played mid. He just played Zyra. That's just kind of a strange pick. But they didn't have their typical 80 carry for either of these games. Um, and they were boosted up. Your boy, Shin Horu, 23 kills on Rengar in game number two, by the way.
Dude, Shinyo Horo, he's a beast. He just needs a little bit of help, and I guess without his ADC to drag him down, he's able to come out and have a good game.
Yeah. So now the big one, Max with the upset over High Octane Gamers. What did you make of these games?
Uh, the one on stream, if I remember correctly, was kind of a cluster. Um, I don't even know with these 2 teams. I don't think that anyone was expecting Max to really come in and take care of Hog like they did, but um, yeah, no, it's definitely interesting to watch.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, especially from a Max perspective. Normally, you have Revan Christ as your big carry. We saw him have just ridiculous games 20 kills, like 18 kills earlier on this season. He wasn't the big carry. Instead, I know the truth stepping up the 8-0 on the Nico, the 6-1 on the Caitlyn. Really solid 80 carry performances. And if they can get that second carry going, Max could be really scary down the stretch.
Absolutely. And then Gerbil, I believe he executed last week on the Amumu this week. Had some really big ults, in that game 3 to close that series out, and definitely a good look there from Max. As we're just coming into the end of the season, it's definitely good for them to show that they have a little bit more up their sleeve than just Revan Christ.
Yeah, and as Hog, do you think it's panic button time at all? Are you worried about them going forward?
Not particularly. I think that Hog is still a pretty strong team. Um, didn't they have some roster issues this last couple of weeks?
As far as I know, they
A
played
little
with
bit
their
of shuffling.
starters up to here, and then for the upcoming week, they were looking at doing a swap, which I can't say much more about. So,
Oh, okay, I wasn't sure if this week they did the swap or not. But yeah, either way, it's definitely interesting to see that they dropped a game to Max team that didn't look particularly strong, but I'd expect them to probably bounce back. They're still a strong team.
yeah. So our Bilgewater standings after week 5, Return of the Middle Sticks in first, has not dropped a game yet, 10-0 in game score. But then you have G5 and Hog now. At 4-1, Hog should actually be above G5, just based on head-to-head, because that's the first tiebreaker, not the win percentage. Just
Ooh,
as a
hit them
heads
with
up.
it. Let them
Um,
know.
Sleeper Diamonds, Max, and Flex all tied at 3-2, and then HSG, Ghost, UCO, and AVRM bringing up the rear. Again, it's only top 4 teams that make the playoffs out of these gold conferences, so kind of a tight race up there at the top.
Extremely tight. 6 teams that realistically have a shot at competing for those playoff spots. It'll be definitely interesting down the line, just seeing if there's any parity that's ended up being made between any of these teams, or if it is just this clumped and we have to go to the big old rule of tiebreakers.
Yeah. So Shadow Isles are last week 5 as we try to remember back 3 weeks ago. Oklahomi's 2-0 Landsneck, Unnecessary Roughness 2-0 the Piltover Pokes. Get money, boys. AKA Ascended Royalty took down SEAL Team 6. No Apologies beat RKO. And then TLM beat Yellow Jackets. Um, the one to talk about is our Gambit friends here taking down SEAL Team 6-2-1. I think a little bit of an unexpected result, and it helps reclump all the standings again.
Yeah, definitely. ASR coming off of the rebranding and able to take out a SEAL Team 6 team that was starting to look pretty scary. We had talked about them previously as, looking like a team that would be difficult to beat. And, GMB's coming in and in their first week as an org, taking care of business.
Yeah, and you have to be a little bit worried. Again, this just basically makes the clump even clumpier. So
Hmm.
SEAL Team 6 doesn't get significantly hit by this loss, but we were expecting them to emerge as the team on top of the clump last week, as we were talking about Paladin and Joe Barrow in particular on that team. And, you know, dropping a game against GMB means that now you probably need to win a game against one of those 3 top teams.
You definitely do to really cement yourself in there because with everyone tied at, I believe they're all at 2-3 now. Is that right?
Mhm.
Um, with everyone tied at that, you have to start picking up wins that someone else isn't, to be able to put yourself up in that top four. And it's just so hard within a 10 team league getting into the top four. Um, but everyone's still contending for it, I suppose.
Yeah. Our game of the week was TLM versus Yellow Jackets, and it wasn't close, unfortunately. Seymour showed up, went 21-2 in the 2 games, and they went home early after the 2-0.
Yeah, no, TLM just showing that they belong at the top. They're really coming in, taking care of business. This is definitely the team to beat, I'd say, or at least one of the top teams. Does this win pretty much cement them in playoffs?
So we'll take a look at our Shadow Isle standings. It's 3 teams at 5-0, with differentiating game scores, but TLM in first, UXR in second, No Apologies in third. All of those teams, let's do some quick maths, but you have 9 games,
Okay,
so
agreed.
not quite safe just yet. Need another win or two, but getting close.
Yeah, I mean 6 pretty much clinches you, doesn't it?
I think 7 is the clinch. 6 puts you maybe in tiebreakers, but
Okay. Well, either way, definitely feeling good if you're on top of that heap. TLM, you are in 0 AP. None of them have played each other yet, so that's definitely some really big matchups that we have coming up in the next few weeks. Um, but either way, it's definitely, I'd say this league is very much, the top 3 teams and then everybody else. As we look at the everybody right at 2-3, and then a couple teams at 1-4. definitely just a massive clump, as we've come to call it.
Yeah, and Piltover Poke's still not statistically eliminated, but last year's Demacia champions, sitting there at 0 and 5.
Yeah, are they
If
not eliminated?
they can still hit 4 and everybody else can fall, so yeah,
I mean, these teams have to be playing each other though, so like,
I I I,
I'm not
th-
interested in doing the maths. Never
I
mind, it's
think
fine.
I think you can clump up at 4 and 6 statistically, or 4 and
4 and
5.
5.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
OSU basically, I think, needs to win out.
absolutely.
I
I
think
think
that's
if
the
they
math.
want a chance at it, they absolutely have to.
Yeah. Our prediction standings after last week, everybody went 12 and 7. We only had like 2 games that we differed on, and then kind of picked them up differentially. So standings don't move. Aikato's still up 3 games on everybody else overall. Um, you get like 15 seconds, 30 seconds to say whatever you want as the victor. So what do you got this week?
Still keeping it up 3 games. My Shadow Owls is smurfing. Actually, I think everyone had issues with. Yeah, our Shadow Owls wasn't that great last week. Um, God, everyone's scores looks almost exactly alike. I don't know.
Yeah,
I,
my
I'm
plat last
better.
week
Nana
was
nana.
something to behold.
Yeah, 1 and 3 is definitely not I just expected more from you, Maris.
Yeah, I expected more from me as well. Anyway, our diamond schedule for week 7: Iron 5 versus Landsnack, Unlucky Retribution versus Sky Zero, GGL versus Graceland, UCO versus Team Fish Taco, and Return to the Middle Sticks versus those thumb guys from Spy Kids. Um, our first important match uh, is Iron 5 versus Landsnack. We touched on it a little bit earlier, but um, this is basically the game for the playoff bubble right now.
Yeah, absolutely. These are two teams that are coming in tied in game score, and both of them are fighting for the exact same playoff spot. I would say that whoever ends up winning this comes near to clinching a playoff spot or virtually clinching a playoff spot. Um, but either way, this is definitely a game that both of these teams really want to win, especially with Sneck coming off of not the best week and Iron 5 coming off the 0-2 loss to Team Fish Taco.
Yeah, the crowd going with Iron 5 very, very slightly over Landsneck. So the belief in Aikido coming through.
Yeah, specifically just me. 1v9 player. No, I think that the Iron 5, if they want to see success, definitely needs to, um, see it in that top lane coming out of General Vici, who's honestly had a really good split so far, and into one of the mainstays of the OKLCS in Jack Loves Lamp. It's definitely a matchup you want to keep an eye on, as well as in the mid lane, Saber not having the best weeks recently, going into King Eatloaf, who just joined Sneck. I believe he's had 1 series with them, 2 series with them.
I think it's
Um,
just one, but
just one. I'm sorry, it's hard with the gap. The
yeah,
gap week is killing me.
it's killing
Um,
me too. I feel it.
Either way, it's definitely a matchup to watch. And then Sneck, of course, most of the time when they're winning through that bottom lane, through Rito Torchic and Killering, who's one of the stronger bot lane duos in the league. It'll be interesting to see how they match up against it's Chris, not Chris, and Randy Newman.
Yeah. Other. Oh, we're actually not going to talk about it. Do you want to say anything about UR versus Sky Zero?
Definitely a really interesting matchup as Sky's coming off of loss when Sky lost to ROTM. That's right. This is another one of those teams that's at the top of the standings, and with Sky sitting at 2-3, it's definitely a game that if they're able to win, it's a statement win. And you are coming off of losing 1 game, dropping a game to Graceland last week or 2 weeks ago. Um, it definitely is a team that looks like it potentially could be beaten.
Mhm.
Should be a it could be a close match, I'd say.
Yeah. Our game of the week, as voted by the viewers, not by us, was Return to the Middle Sticks versus those dumb guys from Spy Kids. And I was kind of surprised by the vote, honestly. I probably would have gone with either I5 Snack or UR Sky, but this is what the viewers wanted us to talk about. So, how do you see uh, Weenie and Chris matching up against Return of the Middle Sticks.
It'll definitely be extremely interesting as, Thumb just came off of giving the other first place team their first loss. Might be able to give ROTM their second loss as they beat the team that beat ROTM. Um,
Yeah,
you know,
Thumb's on that 2 game win streak now, and momentum definitely a thing. Maybe the bye week have something to say about that, but uh, Thumb might be getting hot at the right time.
yeah, I mean they played during the bye week, so they didn't really take a week off. So yeah, I'd say they're carrying that momentum with them, and that said, RTM is definitely looking extremely strong. They probably match up relatively well into Thumb. The biggest thing would be just to make sure that they ban ASOL because for some reason teams are still giving Thumb ASOL. Quit giving him Aurelion Soul. Weenie, in case you guys don't know, for anyone who doesn't know, Weenie is a master tier ASOL one trick. Don't give him ASOL. Please quit fucking giving him ASOL. Um, yeah, that's how you beat Thumb. Congrats. You're welcome.
Our other predictions from the viewers, kind of the way you'd expect: Unlucky Retribution, GGL, and Team Fish Taco, all getting pretty gigantic shares of the vote.
Yeah, you would definitely expect them. That said, both of these, Graceland and UCO did end up putting together a win in their series in the last week, so maybe GGL will continue their downward slope, troubling trends. They lost their last week. Maybe they'll end up dropping to Graceland. Um, but no, I think that these percentages are pretty accurate.
Yeah, I just realized I didn't make a slide with our predictions, so I'm just going to verbally say them so that we can be held accountable for them.
All right,
Um,
sounds good.
but basically, we agree with the viewers on every game. So there you go.
Hey,
We've got
um,
Iron 5, UR, GGL, Team Fish Taco, and Return of the Middle Sticks. So yeah, good luck, everybody. There's not going to be any shift in the standings for those 2 divisions, but our platinum schedule for this week: OGR versus iTown, Team Name Here versus GSM, the Meat Beats versus King of Baron, and Sensei Squad versus Shme.
yeah,
And
and
I don't remember actually making a second. I'm going to cheat. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so do you want to talk about any of the top 3 games?
Yeah, actually, the Meat Beats versus Kings of Baron, I think is an extremely interesting game because Kings of Baron coming off of a win, the Meat Beats coming off of 2 losses. This is definitely an interesting matchup and one that if you asked me 2 weeks ago, I probably wouldn't have told you that this would be a game that mattered. But with where both of these teams are sitting at, it could come out to be a really good game, and one that means a lot for the standings, as both of these teams really want to pick up a win this week to put themselves in that top half.
Yeah, definitely should be interesting. I don't expect OGR or Team Name Here to slip up, so it's going to be these bottom 2 games that we're going to highlight. And our game of the week, our top of the standings clash between Sensei Squad and Shme. Viewers 60% in favor of Sensei Squad, really going with the undefeated team so far.
Yeah, and Sensei Squad haven't had that big slip up yet, whereas Schmed last week dropping the series to team name here is definitely a slip up. It'll be really interesting to see if they're able to bounce back and show that that wasn't indicative of this team. But this really is the top of the standings going at it, and it should be a matchup that's replayed in playoffs.
Yeah, I think it's weird, specifically Sensei Squad. I don't feel like they're as far ahead of these other teams as maybe the standing indicate. Um, it seems like every game that I watch them on stream, it's like super even in kills, goes down to a late game situation, and then Sensei Squad just pulls it out. And that they keep winning is really impressive, but you have to wonder if there's that slip up waiting down the line for them.
Yeah, and that might be the case, but I mean, if they're continuing to pick up the wins, it's there's only so much stuff you can say against them.
Yeah, granted, we
Um,
also watch the closer games on stream, and I haven't watched any off stream, so it's they might just be stomping in 18 minutes and all their other games, and we just get to see the tense, clenchy ones. But
It's definitely something that's interesting is that we always do see the closer games, so it's kind of hard to pinpoint really how strong these teams are, how close these teams are if we're seeing the closest game every time.
Yeah, it is one of those you realize if you watch one steamroll though, you have to think that there was a second even worse steamroll that happened. So that's always that's always a struggle to keep in mind sometimes. But um, anyway, other predictions basically how you would think OGR, TNH, and Meat Beats getting 75 to 80% of the votes. For the record, I believe we agreed with the viewers again, so um, no difference for Platinum either.
Yeah, apparently everyone has been lukewarm to GSM. Nobody, for the first time, thinks that they'll win. It'll definitely be
Yeah, now that the
interesting to
pressure's
see.
off, they're gonna probably just flip it on us. We'll see.
Yeah, probably.
Bilgewater schedule: UCO versus Flex, G5 versus Max, HSG versus AVRM2, Sleeper Diamonds take on Ghost, and then Hog versus Return of the Middle Sticks. Um, there's really two games to highlight. G5 versus Flex, though, or G5 versus
Versus
Max,
Max.
excuse me. Max coming off of the big win last week, the big upset over Hog, now with a team that they need to beat in order to get back into the playoff picture. Uh, how do you feel this game's going to go?
With Max showing last week that they didn't necessarily need to rely on Rev and Christ, it'll definitely be interesting to see if they're able to take that power that they had in the bottom lane and transfer it to this game. That said, G5 has been looking pretty good, and they have a lot of really strong laners. I think a lot of this will hinge on whether or not Gerbil executes his jungle. If he does, then it might make it a little harder. But if he doesn't, this could be a really close series.
Yeah, Tall Guy and Thunderstorm in particular have played really well for G5, and I think it creates a situation where the top of the map's probably stronger for G5, bottom of the map's probably a little bit stronger for Max, but I'll be interested to see specifically if Static and Acepen can step up for G5 and, uh, take down maybe a little bit of a hot hand and I Know the Truth.
Yeah, we'll see if I know the truth is able to take the power that they had last week and bring it into this game, or if G5 will be able to just shut them down.
And then the match of the week, number one versus number three, unfortunately, after Hog took the loss, but Hog versus Return of the Middle Sticks. I'm gonna let you talk about it because I hate talking about my own team.
ROTM perfect team, 10-0. They gotta win it, right? They're easily the best team within the league. For the first time, the popular vote is for ROTM instead of Hog. Even the people understand the power that Return of the Middle Sticks has. Uh, that said, I mean, of course, Hog is a pretty good team, and they have been known to, put some games together. We lost our. There we go. It could be a really close match, realistically. That said, I would definitely give the edge to ROTM, who I think have just been a lot more consistent.
Yeah. Other predictions, even bigger percentages than we saw in Platinum for Flex, Heartstuck Gold, and Sleeper Diamonds. Once again, everybody just agreeing for Bilgewater. So the only place we're going to differ in predictions is going to be Shadow Isles. So prepare to throw down here in a couple of minutes.
Ooh, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Shadow Isles schedule: Piltover Pokes versus Lanceneck, Oklahomies versus GMB, Unnecessary Roughness versus RKO, Yellow Jackets versus SEAL Team 6, and No Apologies take on GS or TLM. Excuse me.
Close.
Close. An important game. Again, to help maybe resolve our clump is going to be Oklahomies versus GMB. And right now, Oklahomies with just a little bit better of the vote. They have the much better game score coming in, but GMB a little bit revitalized with this new roster.
Yeah, I mean, coming off of the win last week, it'll definitely be interesting. That said, based on how games have come out in the past, I would expect whatever result um, leads into the biggest clump possible is probably the result that's going to come out of this. Um, Said, I think it's really interesting. Both these teams are 2 and 3, and the game score is so vastly different. Um, is that game score right?
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, it's just kind of interesting. It's that far apart.
it is kind of strange. Um, Our match of the week, though, another undefeated clash. Again, 1 versus 3 because of the way these happen. But TLM getting their first big, I think, match of the week and or match of the season, even as they take on No Apologies.
I think Zero AP has probably been a team that, even though they're 5-0, they've had some really close series. That said, this is the clash of the Titans, the two undefeated teams that we highlighted earlier, two of the three undefeated teams, clashing at the top of those standings. This is a matchup that's likely to, well, I don't know, with the way the playoffs go down, maybe they won't play each other again. It's kind of weird, but either way, it should be a really good game. A lot of really strong players on both teams.
Yeah, and I think in particular you want to highlight the strong players coming in. So Seymour in particular has been playing out of his mind for TLM, and on the other side for No Apologies, it's been no mind. So you have the two carries in different lanes, and we'll have to see if they can assert their authority in their respective lanes, and if we get that big titanic clash come late game of those two carries.
Agreed.
Anyway, other predictions. The viewers going with Piltover Pokes, Unnecessary Roughness, and SEAL Team 6. Um, Let me look. Okay, so my predictions. I have I have Oklahomies. I agree with the viewers, but you have GMB.
Yeah, GMP coming off of the strong week. We'll see if they're able to continue that momentum. And honestly, like with where both teams are sitting at, I feel like it could be a really close matchup, and it could go either way.
Yeah, and then both of us have Yellow Jackets, but the viewers have SEAL Team 6.
A lot of belief in that team that unfortunately ended up dropping a game last week, or dropping the series last week. If they're able to come back and make the big win against Yellow Jackets, could definitely be a good statement win for them.
Yeah. So now I'm gonna go ahead and get something set up very quickly. Um, if I remember where I'm looking, there we go. And then I'm gonna pull in our first guest. We're gonna do Diamond Midseason Awards, and there we go. Did we get him?
Hello.
Hello. I'm gonna turn you up just a little bit, and then now we'll introduce you. So welcome to the stream, Mark Hames, and yeah. So I guess I just wanted to touch base a little bit so that the viewers know who you are. But you're the support player for Sky Zero. Just do you want to tell us a little bit about how you feel your season's going so far up to the midway point?
Yeah, right now up until the midway, I can't say that I'm not disappointed because I really expected Sky to come back fighting this season after taking a season off from the GRLCS and really come back and make a statement that we are the old guard and that we belong at the top of the standings. Now, although we're a bit lower in the standings, we're very hopeful for playoffs and we know that we can make it there.
So real quick then, just looking, you had done a power rankings before the season coming in, right? For
Yes.
all the teams. And in that, you had those thumb guys from Spy Kids as number three and Sky Zero as number four. What do you think has really caused them to not be able to live up to the expectations that you had for them?
I think that both of our teams, we really underestimated the level of competition in the GRLCS after we both took a split off and we came back. We thought that, the same old GRLCS. And we kind of come back and disrespected some of our opponents. But now that we're going towards the later part of the season, I think both of our teams are starting to pick it up again. And I believe that we could both make playoffs and maybe my power rankings will remain true.
Definitely be interesting to keep that. We'll see how that ends up.
All right. So I haven't pre-made slides, so we're going to be doing this a little bit differently than normal. But I'm going to start with Mark, and we're going to go through. Um, I guess first I wanted to talk just a little bit about what you guys thought the biggest surprises were this season. If you wanted to tell me what's kind of stuck out to both of you as the first half of the season's played out.
All right, for me, the biggest surprise, just first off, right off the top of my head, I can't believe that Thumb took the game series off of GGL. Although GGL did have their subs, I really didn't expect Chris Can't Miss and his gang to be able to take that one. So that was a huge surprise to me after their early struggle in the split.
Yeah, and I suppose that given GGL's power in the past, it's been very jungle and AD centric. So I'm not particularly surprised that when they're missing the jungle and AD, they don't have success, especially based off of last split where, a lot of their losses came when Koala wasn't able to play for them. Um, my biggest surprise for me within the Diamond League has been the support transplants from, you know, Killer Ring going from support to mid for a few weeks for Lansneck, as well as PB Doughboy and Gavi ended up going into the jungle, and just how impressive they've been within their specific roles. It's just kind of surprising that these players that you might not normally expect to be extremely successful, if they are coming from the support role to a different role, just the amount of success that they have had.
Yeah, and I want to highlight PB Doughboy specifically. I'm extremely impressed with his transition to jungle, as in the past he has been like a veteran support player for the league, but he's never been one of the top supports in the league. He's always been about middle of the pack. So now that he's a jungler, in my opinion, he's one of the better junglers in the league at this moment. So very impressive transition from him.
Definitely, and I think even more surprising is just the champions that they are playing. I think I highlighted a couple weeks back, but these players aren't playing like just Sejuani or just Trundle or just Skarner. Like, I think that the most played for Gavi and PB Doughboy both is Lee Sin. I mean, what the hell? I wouldn't expect that out of them.
Yeah, and just another surprise that I from this split is a player from my team, Almighty. A lot of the eyes were on him coming to the split. In the past, he's been one of the more dominant mid laners in the GRLCS, but this split, he's really just flopped, in my opinion. And I don't mind saying that because he's my teammate, and we know exactly what's going on. We're improving every single week, but all the eyes were on Almighty, and he just didn't show up this split.
I don't disagree, especially with the GRLCS that historically has had a relatively weak lineup within the mid lane. In seasons past, I've talked about the mid lane feeling like the type of role that could be abused by a really strong, mechanical, aggressive player. And I sort of expected Almighty to fill that role, but unfortunately, this split he just hasn't. He seems pretty middle of the pack right now, and just I expected a lot more. That said, the other thing that I was surprised about was just Lansneck in general. They're coming in now 3-2. This was a team that I didn't expect to be even close to the top half. Like maybe they're fighting for like sixth place, but with some of the strong lineups that they've had, some of the role swapping that they've done a good job of picking up wins. As they come. And now they're sitting at 3-2 near the top of the standings, and I'm definitely just surprised with how effective they've been.
Yeah, Lansneck, I didn't rate them very highly going into the split, but watching some of their plays really impressed me. Off the back, especially of Rito Torchic, who's honestly their superstar ADC, and I don't think without him that they could be having such success in this split so far.
Without a doubt, I think Rito Torchic is definitely their star, and I think a lot of their success early on was with the duo lane of Rito Torchic and Himana. Um, they haven't played the last couple weeks with Himana. It'll be interesting to see if he ends up coming back in or not. Probably a little bit weaker without him in the lineup, but it's definitely been a strong point for their team.
Yeah. So let's get into the actual awards, I guess, then. If you want to start Aikido, let's go 3-1 on top laners. So give me your number 3 mid laner or top laner for Diamond.
All right, so number 3 top laner for Diamond, I'd have to go with Liposuction Lane from Return of the Middle Sticks. Not the flashiest player in the world. Doesn't play really the strongest of carries, but has consistently been one of the stronger top laners. He's constantly getting gold leads and leads within his lane, and just a really high level of play coming out of him. Um, Number 2, I'd go with Vibon from GGL, who has had a great split so far. This is a guy who has shown that he's extremely effective on tanks, as well as even a couple games on things like Yorick, and almost able to 1v9 those games against Sky Thumb? Thumb. Against Thumb this last week. I think Vibon is really One of the strongest and most consistent top laners within the league. And then number one, I have Iron Five's General Vici, who is another transplant from the bottom lane this time, from AD carry to the top lane. And he's just been so strong for the Iron Five, really a force in that top lane. Uh, he's shown that he's able to play tanks, like the Cho'Gath, and pretty much 1v9 game in their first week, as well as played carries like the Vladimir. It's definitely I've been impressed with how strong General Vici has been within this league and how dominant he's been within that top lane.
All right. Let's get our counterpoint then. Mark, who do you feel? Let's go 3-1 again.
Yeah, so my third pick is also liposuction lane from Return of the Middle Sticks. So for the same reasoning as Aikado there, where we have just such a consistent player in the top lane, but he's not really flashy enough. He's not really showing me those mechanics that are going to put him towards the top of the league. But he is very consistent. I'll give him that, and his team fighting and side laning later in the game is excellent compared to other top laners. Number two pick for me is also GGL's V Ben. Um, yeah, he's pretty much the same as liposuction lane in every single way, except he can play carries as well. And I've been very impressed by B Ben. And in this about middle of the split, where he's shown a lot of these carry performances, and I'm excited to see what else he has in store for the rest of the split. The number one pick for me as well is also Iron Five's General Vici. Aikado and I having very similar top lane top threes. But General Vici used to be an ADC player for the GRLCS. This split, when he told me he was transitioning over to the top lane, I absolutely knew that he was going to be one of the best top laners in the league, and he has really shown up this split. He's one of the most consistent players on Iron 5, and he's been putting in all these carry performances, and even when he's on tanks, he's able to carry, such as the earlier games on the Cho'Gath this split.
So I
Yeah, and
guess
I can't disagree too much with your lineup there.
I guess I'm kind of curious, especially for Aikado. Uh, we've talked a lot about Azuki as being one of those dominant players. Do you feel like he's just that step below liposuction lane, or are you regretting
I
this now that I mention it?
No, I do feel like Azuki is a step below. He's definitely had some instances where he's played extremely well or had a great showing, but I feel like he's not quite as consistent as Lane. That said, what Azuki does bring is a consistent requirement to ban Riven against him, because Azuki has literally never had Riven not banned against him ever since he started playing in the JRLCS last split. So he does bring that, but uh, that said, I just don't feel like he's as consistently uh, good in lane as Liposuction has been.
All right. You want to go ahead and we'll start with Mark this time for our junglers. I need
All
to
right, so my
delete
number
everything.
three pick for the jungle. Oh, I'll talk while you're getting your formatting there.
There we go.
But number three pick for jungle is Heimerdoodles from Team Fish Taco. Now, Heimerdoodles is honestly, in my opinion, the carry of his team. He's really putting in work in the early game to be able to get his team through the game and kind of snowballed leads through the jungle. He's very consistent. His pathing is leaves some to be desired, but his mechanics, and especially on some of his champions such as Kindred, are very excellent. His team fighting and his skirmishing, he's able to get a lot off of that, and he's really able to just carry Team Fish Taco in that manner. My number two pick for jungle is UKPX Koala from GGL. Now, he's just missed too many games this season for me to make an accurate judgment on him. But from what I've seen, he's very impressive. He's able to get leads for his team in the early game, really focusing down on that bot lane in a lot of the games where his pathing is just very excellent, using his lane's priority to be able to invade jungle, secure those river scuttles, and really make it through the early game for his team. He's really a rock in that way. And my number one pick for the jungle is Tendies 2 from Return of the Middle Sticks. Now, out of all the junglers so far that I've played in this league, Tendies 2 is by far the best because he's just able to carry his team so well, like more so than any of these other junglers. He consistently performs on any carry pick that you put him on, and he's going to be able to play the team fights so excellently no matter what pick you put him on. He really understands each of the champions that he picks down to a T, and he's able to create consistent performances in that way.
All right, I'm really curious then. Aikedo, you want to hit us up
Oof.
with your picks here?
Sure. So, in third place, is someone who I've probably in the past have put as the best jungler within the league, but has had definitely less strong of a split. I'd put Iron Five's Aikedo as the third in the jungle. And even though it has been, less strong of a split, I still feel like Aikedo has been extremely strong in applying a lot of pressure early, creating experience and gold leads around the map, and is just always a force to be reckoned with within team fights and early skirmishing. The other thing that Aikedo brings that some people might not see is consistent bans against him. I think that a lot of his champion pool kind of warps the way that drafting is done, just based on consistently pulling bans for champs that some people just don't play. Definitely places a strange priority on jungle picks just by participating within pick ban. Number two on my list is Tendies 2 from Return of the Middle Sticks, who he's just such a good carry. Playing weird shit like Riven and Evelyn, and it's just impossible to ban this guy out. That said, sometimes he's a little overly aggressive. Sometimes he hasn't looked great on picks like the Riven. That said, he's definitely shown that he's one of the strongest carries within the league and is an extremely strong jungler. The number one, I have GGL's UKP X Koala. This guy's just the best jungler in the league. And anyone who says anything different is a meme. I mean, this guy is so fucking good. And he just plays so many different carries. He can play tanks. He can play shit like Karthus. He applies so much pressure around the map. He's just such a strong jungler. The big thing about Koala is that he always makes sure that the game is played to his strengths. He doesn't put himself in bad situations. He doesn't commit himself to bad fights. He's just consistently staying active around the map and just being the strong carry for GGL that they really need. Um, yeah. So Heimerdoodles, huh? You think he's number three?
Yeah, I've been very impressed with Heimerdoodle's play thus far this split. I think that he's one of the more consistent carries for his team, who honestly is not really focused on any one key player. It's really focused on their teamwork and how they get through the early game. So I've been very impressed with how Heimerdoodles mediates that.
With regards to his position within the team, I feel like the carry for that team is 100% Puffles in the mid lane. I think Heimerdoodles sometimes is able to get his team ahead, but there are some times that having jungled against him, I'm just, a big old thinking emoji on his pathing sometimes, and perhaps he goes a little bit too far forward sometimes. That said, I do definitely think he's in the upper half of junglers. I just don't think he's quite good enough to crack that top three.
All right. So now that we've got some little bit of salt boiling, let's jump into the mid lane then. This time we're gonna make Aikedo start. Give me 1 second though, or if you want to just give me your third, I'll catch up.
Sure. So, number three for the mid lane for me is GGL's Mortally Divine. And I'll mean Mortally Divine from here until the end of the world. Uh, but this split, he's really shown that he's one of the strongest mid laners within the league. He's had some really strong performances on things like the Orianna, like the Lissandra, showing that he's a bit more diverse in his champion pool than just playing Karma or Zillion like he might have last split. Uh, Definitely been impressed with the way that he's been playing recently, and expect him to be one of the strongest mid laners within the league. Number two, I have Demon Print from Return of the Middle Sticks, who's just so consistently strong in his lane. He puts out so much damage within team fights. He gets leads. He plays a lot of the really strong meta picks, and he's just so consistently strong for his team. And he's really the carry that his team needs to supplement Tendies. And then number one for mid lane is Puffles Mia from Team Fish Taco. This guy literally is just so fucking strong in team fights. This guy's so good in lane. He's consistently getting gold leads, consistently getting CS leads, consistently making massive plays within team fights to carry his team. This guy is just so good in that mid lane. A guy who wasn't here in the last split and showed up and I think really made a massive impression within this split. Just one of the strongest performances in mid lane that I've seen so far.
All right, for me, my number 3 pick for the mid lane is Chris Can't Miss from those thumb guys from Spy Kids. Now, I believe that Chris is one of the main reasons that his team is on this upswing right now in the about mid split of the GRLCS. I think he's a big carry for his team, whether that he's mid or top. But he's always contributing a lot during the team fights, and his laning phase has always been solid. Now, my second pick for mid lane is going to be Demon Print from Return of the Middle Sticks. Now, Demon Print has had a lot of carry performances, and his lane is very excellent. Now, one thing I have to knack on for Demon Print for is his ability in the mid game to kind of choose where he wants to go in the map. Now, I don't know if it's his team's shot calling, but sometimes when I watch him in the games, he just is in not where he needs to be during the game. So, but other than that, he's very excellent in every other regard. His team fighting is absolutely remarkable. Now, number 1 pick for me is GGL's Mortally Divine. Now, I know that Ikato and Mortally Divine have some beef, so maybe that's why Mortally Divine isn't towards the top of the list. But I honestly think Mortally Divine is an excellent player. Now, I wasn't here last split when he was playing primarily the Karma the Zillion, so I didn't really know that his mid lane pool stretched so deep. I suppose he's been primarily playing these carry picks in the mid lane. I believe he's putting in some Lysandra games as well, so not necessarily a carry pick, but something just stronger in the mid meta right now. But he's able to play these team fights and play these side lanes very well, especially mid late game, and playing around Baron is very important for his team.
So perhaps for me, for Mortally Divine, why I might put him a little bit lower is just that within his team, the dynamic doesn't necessarily uh, put him as the carry in most of their games. I feel like most of the time for GGL, they win through proactive and strong plays from UKPX Koala. Um, and I feel like Mortally Divine oftentimes will definitely benefit from his jungler just being that much stronger than enemy junglers. That said, he's definitely put in a lot of great performances, and he definitely belongs in the talk here for the top three. That said, Chris Can't Miss. I have not been particularly impressed with his play recently. Um, he just hasn't really had any great carry performances that I've seen, especially if you get him off of the one or two champions that he's extremely comfortable on. I feel like his champion pool kind of drops after that, and he just has a lot more trouble creating pressure around the map and being the carry that his team really needs. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Um, then yeah, let's jump into 80 carries then. Try to move it along. I like the discussions we're having though. Okay.
Oh, sorry. If you want, I can just.
No. We're good. Um, oh,
I start on this one.
yeah, you start on this one.
Okay, so number 3 pick for ADC for me is Unlucky Retributions, Tien Sama. Now he is most definitely the carry of his team, and they're putting in a lot of resources to Tien Sama. Sometimes in the team fights, he can misposition quite wildly, so that's why I have to put him a little lower on this list. But his laning is fairly solid, and his skirmishing is very solid. It's just that during team fights and whatnot, he can just miss position or just play them wildly horribly. So Tien Saba, though, he's still a great player, and he's definitely the reason why Unlucky Retribution is so high in the standings right now. Number 2 pick for me for ADC is Lance Next Rito Torchic. Uh, Now, I'm a little biased towards Rito Torchic because I do play with him um, for the University of Oklahoma, and he is my ADC. But that being said, I still think he's a great ADC. All of Lance Next wins thus far have been just him popping off in laning phase and just carrying his lead over to the rest of his team and playing those team fights just immaculately. Now, number 1 pick for me is FOTC Fourth Shot, I believe from Return of the Middle Sticks. Now, I honestly don't have much to say about him because I don't watch much of Return of the Middle Sticks, but I was just looking at the stats for the splits ADCs, and he was towards the top on a lot of them, both him and Yab Yinda. But I left Yab Yinda off just to give some of these other ADCs a chance to shine, just because I feel like they're really the reason that their team is so high in the standings that they're picking up all these wins.
Oof. I don't quite disagree with the four shot. We can come back to that. So my list, number 3, I have GGL's Yabienda. We've talked about this guy, great lengths before. He's very all in, very feast or famine for 80 carries. He can be a massive carry for this GGL team, or he can int you a game. But with just how strong he is when he is carrying, I think it definitely necessitates his position on this board. He's just been so strong, especially in lane. Some of the 2v2s that they turn around for GGL is just kind of insane. Yabienda is just such a strong player that's willing to go balls deep constantly. Um, Number 2, I have Rito Torchic from Landsneck. Definitely the reason that his team has had the success that it's had so far this split. He's just so consistently able to put out damage within team fights and be a strong hyper carry for this team. He plays shit like Kog'Maw, he's playing shit like Jinx. He's just so strong within this team, and even if they fall behind early in lane, he still finds a way to be a threat within team fights. And then number 1 for 80 carries, I have Unlucky Retribution's Tien Sama. This guy's a 1v9 player. He's literally carrying that team. Sometimes he has poor positioning, but so do all these 80 carries, let's be honest. I think he's just so consistently strong in the game. And anytime that you're playing against UR, Tien Sama just has a way of making the game be played around him. Every single game with UR has to be played around Tien Sama. He's always in the back of your mind. He's always on this like Caitlyn pick or something that's just applying so much pressure. And if you leave him alone once in a team fight, he's just going to hard carry it and just destroy your team. Um, that said, FOTC 4 shot. I had him listed on my surprises because he is a player who I've shit on in the past for not being the strongest in his role, especially within his team. I think that he kind of gets a pass for being on an extremely strong team. Um, this split, I think he's personally played better than he has previously, but he still makes so many mistakes and loses so many 2v2s and makes quite a few decisions that I just have trouble putting him in the upper tiers for 80 carries. I might put him like 5th or 6th. I don't think that those stats really speak to how this bot lane is playing out, especially with his lack of synergy with his new support this split. I just don't think that they're one of the strongest 2v2s, and I don't think he's one of the strongest 80 carries in the league.
I'm going to jump in and just highlight to build off another point. Tien Sama is actually number 2 right now in kills with 114, number 2 in kills per game, right behind Tendies. And that's the very top of the list. I was going to jump in earlier. Mortally Divine's 5th in kills and also 9th in deaths, so that's pretty cool. And Tendies is 1st in kills and 6th in deaths. So you know what? Some of these
Yeah,
players very aggressive. We'll put it that way.
Confirmed, Tendies is best ADC in the league.
Anyway, so yeah, Mark, what do you think about what Aikido had to say? Sorry to jump in.
Um, I mean, I don't know if all of what Kato said was true or not because I really don't watch Return of the Middle Six. So I have to trust you on this one. If he's losing these 2v2s, he's losing these 2v2s. I mean, I just saw the stats and I said, "Oh man, this is a great ADC player."
No, I definitely think that he definitely gets a pass because he is on a strong team with players like Tendies, like Demon Print, who are so consistently far ahead of their competition, that he's able to transition to a mid game and late game where he's just right clicking and able to give enough to a team fight to contribute to their win. Um, I just don't feel like he's one of the better ADCs.
All right, so let's finish up with some supports then. I believe Kato gets to start on this one.
Okay, so number 3 on my support list, um, where do I have it at? There it is actually Iron Five's Randy Newman. He's kind of had a quieter split, the split that he might have in the past, but I think he's still consistently one of the best supports within the league. I sort of had trouble within the supports within Diamond League because I didn't think there were that many outstanding players. But I do think that Randy has been uh, consistently extremely strong in lane. He's shown a wide champion pool, um, and I've definitely been impressed with his play. Um, Number 2, I have Curb Stomp for UR. Is that right? He's playing for UR.
Yep.
Um, he and Tian Sama are just so strong in lane, and he just does such a great job appealing for Tian Sama and really facilitating him to carry these games for UR. And definitely been impressed with his play, and I think that he's an extremely strong support. And then number 1 for supports, I had Snex Himana, who's technically a sub. He played more than half their games, so I felt fine putting him on this list. I think he's absolutely the reason that Sinek is sitting at the current scoreline that they have. I think he's the reason with Rito Torchic that they've had so much success through that bottom lane, and I think he's absolutely the best supporter, the most valuable support within this league.
All right, Mark.
Okay. Yeah. I have to agree with you on the Mana pick for number 1. I didn't feel comfortable putting him on this list just because I know that he's not going to be playing for the rest of the split most likely. So I tried to keep it to starters only at this point. That being said, my number 3 pick for support is UR's Curb Stomp. I believe that Curb Stomp does an excellent job of supporting Tien Sama, and that thus far he's honestly played the game really well, but mostly on the supportive champions, such as Karma and Morgana, just really helping Tien Sama in these fights, providing that utility for him. And it's really easy to shine as a support when you have a great ADC by your side. Um, for number 2, I have Lord Care Bear from GGL. Um, I honestly don't have much to say on Lord Care Bear just because I haven't really watched him. I've seen some of his highlight plays. He plays the team fights pretty well, and he roams around the map in the early mid game pretty well for one of the supports in this league. And then my number 1 pick for support is Maximus127 from Return of the Middle Sticks. I know that Ikato doesn't rate some of the players on Return of the Middle Sticks too highly, but I think Maximus does a really excellent job in the early game, especially of getting vision for his team, using the priority in the lane that Return of the Middle Sticks drafts to be able to secure that vision for his team, and then converting that vision into a lead for his jungler tendies.
And oof, just looking at Maximus, I think that he's probably a strong individual player, but just based on the bot lane performances that he and Fourshot have had, it seems like there's a lack of coordination between the two of them. And I think that Maximus is good about getting vision. He's good about, trying to create a safe environment for that bottom lane for Fourshot to scale. But it just seems like they don't have the coordination to really be effective in that bottom lane, and I have trouble putting him near the top just because of the lack of effectiveness within lane that I've seen out of those two. And then Lord Care Bear, I like Michael. Michael's a great guy, but he plays 2 champions. He plays Braum and Alistar, and he doesn't even play him that well. I cannot, in good conscience, put him in the top half of supports within the league. I think a lot of his success comes from Yabienda playing the 2v2s extremely well in the early game. Um, and maybe if we see him on a champion that's not Braum or Alistar, maybe I'll give him a little bit more credit then. But until he has an effective performance on them, I just can't. I just can't.
All
So
right, that's fair.
I'm split here. So I do want to highlight Maximus is number one right now in deaths in Diamond League, and I feel a lot of what Aikido says is very true, but I actually really like Lord Care Bear getting his spotlight here. His Braum is disgusting. If Even if he's only playing those two supports, if he's eating two support bands, then the rest of GGL will be enabled. So he can get away with playing his Braum and Alistar every game. His Braum is really, really solid. And I I've casted way too many games of Lord Care Bear's Braum, but uh,
So
I don't know. He's always in the right position as Braum. I don't
to give him
understand it.
credit, last split he played literally only Braum. This split he plays Braum and Alistar. So maybe by next split he'll have a champion pool. Um, Either way, he's definitely had a lot of success in that lane. So more power to him. But still, it's kind of I don't know. I have trouble.
All right, let's jump in our last category for Diamond, and we have talked a lot. So, um, anyway, it's our MVPs. I'm gonna start with Mark. Who do you think the third most valuable player is?
All right. So we talked about this one before, and Akedo does disagree with me, but number 3 pick for me for MVP is Chris Can't Miss for his team. And I talked about before that I attribute Chris for much of the success on his team, especially now coming off the back of 2 wins and one off of a series win off of GGL. So I really expect him to live up to my hype right here and carry me through the rest of the split. um, Now, my number 2 pick for MVP is Tien Sama. So, yeah, for Unlucky Retribution, he's definitely the star player of his team. He's an excellent ADC, and he's really the only reason Unlucky Retribution is up there. He's playing immaculately, and he's very consistent, as Aikado has said. Now, my number 1 pick for MVP is Return of the Millsticks Tendies 2. Now, I think that Tendies has really shown really great performances for his team, especially on like you said, a Kato, the unorthodox picks that he's been picking, such as the Riven Jungle and the Evelyn, where he's really able to skirmish well in the early game and then convert those into big team fight wins for his team.
And I'd have trouble disagreeing with Tendies. I think that he's such a strong carry for that team. Um, but Chris Can't Miss. I mean, I feel like most of their success within their team comes from you know, Hallow, as well as Weenie having, getting the ASOL pick. That's where like half their wins have come from. That said, number 3 for MVP that I have is UR's Tien Sama. This guy's a 1v9 player. They rely on him to win, yada, yada, yada. We've said the same thing for the last 6 months on Tien Sama. He's extremely strong, and his team just relies on him to win, and he's the carry that they need. He just fulfills his role extremely well. Number 2, I have Puffles Mia from Team Fish Taco. And again, I feel like you can attribute almost all of the success of this team to Puffles Mia, who's just been such a strong mid laner this season. And I struggle to see where TFT would be, and I struggle to see a world where TFT has success without Puffles Mia on their team. Um, and then number 1, I have GGL's UKPX Koala. This guy's the best jungler in the league. They miss him for 1 week and lose to fucking Thumb. I mean, come on. This guy is literally the 1v9 player for that team, and he's carried them to an almost undefeated split. He was so strong for them last split. He's just such a strong player, and he's just so effective within his role that I have trouble giving the MVP to anyone else.
Yeah, honestly, I really like both of these lists. Yeah, I think that there's a lot of really good MVP candidates right now in Diamond. And again, before anybody jumps on that bandwagon, MVP isn't necessarily the best player in the league. It is the player who's most valuable to his team. So I definitely can see the arguments for Puffles and Chris Can't Miss, even though they might not necessarily be the strongest at their positions. So
Right, Puffles is the strongest of his positions. Did you miss my list?
Aiketo calling me out immediately on things that I'm saying. Anyway, thanks, Mark, for joining. Do you have anything you want to say to Aiketo or the fans before we jump into Platinum?
No, I had a great time. Thanks for having me, and just tune in for the rest of Sky Zero's games this split.
We'll definitely look forward to seeing Sky Zero. Thanks, Mark, and we'll catch you later.
Yeah, and also make sure to tune in for the Diamond cast because I believe he's casting this week and has a couple times in the past. He does a great job there. So make sure you tune in to watch him do that.
Yeah. So with that being said, we're gonna jump into Platinum. Let me grab our guest here.
Oh,
Hopefully, I didn't interrupt the flow
No.
going on there.
no.
All right.
I was talking to them, but that's fine. We were having good conversations over there.
So our guest is our support. I guess we went on a support kick. Our other players aren't supports though, so that's cool. But from Shme, it's I support my team. Just wanted to touch base again with you, kind of like we did with Mark. But how do you feel like the season's gone up to the halfway point for your team?
I think the season's been going really well for us. We've had somewhat of an easy schedule. We kind of have the rough road ahead with OGR and Sensei Squad, but I think this week will really be a turning point for us. So I'm looking forward to it.
All right.
So I have to ask, Mister, I
Yes.
support my team. I had gone against. I'd ranked Shme as 7th coming in.
Yes,
I'd
you did.
gone against them most weeks and assumed that they wouldn't win. The one week where I finally decide, you know what, I think
Pick us.
Shme's gonna win. You
We
come in and you
threw
guys
out.
end up dropping to. What is the team name here?
Yes, we threw.
What do you have to say for yourself?
We didn't respect how tanky Cho'Gath was. That's like we gave him Callista, but he did the least damage. It felt like he didn't do anything. It was really just Cho'Gath running at our face. Like I don't know. That was rough. So now we just decided we're picking Cho'Gath instead. Nah. But
The OP, the
Yeah.
true counter.
no, I mean I had some rough stuff happen. I wasn't playing as well as I should have been. We kind of just threw. It's unfortunate. But we had a good they played really well. They earned that win for sure. So
All right.
Awesome.
Let's jump into our awards then. I'm gonna start with Aiketo. If you'll go ahead and go 3-1 on your top lane picks for Platinum.
Okay, and I haven't watched as much Platinum as I probably should have. So a lot of this is based off of the games that I have watched and a lot of stats. So I'm not quite as comfortable arguing these. That said, starting out top lane, we're starting out top lane, right?
Yes.
Okay, so first up, I have Love Stories as number 3, playing for OGR. This is a guy who's just had some extremely strong carry performances on champions like the Jax, like the Olaf, and even Kale in recent weeks. He's just applying so much pressure for this team, and a lot of their wins are coming through him playing extremely well. Number 2, I have Rar. I'm Reptar from Team Name here, who also is just such a strong carry pick. I just heard about how tanky his Cho'Gath was against Shme, and just definitely one of the strongest top laners within the league. In the number 1, I have Edforius
oh my god. Why you gotta do that?
from Shme, who has been just extremely effective. Not really playing the carries, but is playing tanks and just you know, being a facilitator within team fights for his team, and I think that he's been a lot of the reason that his team is so successful.
That's so funny. You're gonna give him an ego up there, man. We just tell him not to die 3 times in lane. That's all we tell him to do. My number 3, I have Cancerous Rex from Sensei Squad at number 3, and I know you didn't have him on your list, but I have him up there because, like you kind of said with Love Stories, he just applies a lot of map pressure, and I think he's one of the only 2 top laners that have played Shen, and he only played 1 game of it, but he's been doing really well up there for himself and drawing a lot of pressure. And he's kind of like to me, floating in the background of Sensei Squad because their whole team's just really strong. Number 2, I have Rara Reptar, just like you. He's got a really, really strong carry performance, and he's got a really big champion pool, which is a little was a little surprising when we first thought of him, but he's definitely shown that he's capable of playing more than just Kennen and Urgot. However, the 2 series they lost, he didn't play those champions, so he's kind of hit or miss up there. And then I actually have Love Stories at number 1 from OGR because to me he's one of the most consistent top laners while he doesn't get the most map pressure. Like he doesn't draw a lot of pressure, but when he does and when he's really playing up there, he's consistently the best top laner for me in this league, especially playing Kale and doing really, really well on Kale against Meat Beats. That was really impressive.
That kill game was really strong, and I guess where I differ regarding Cancerous Rex is just the rest of his team is so strong. I feel like a
Yeah.
lot of their wins come from the other positions on his team. So I have trouble, giving him a lot of credit because sometimes it's really hard to determine how strong a laner is if they're not one of the carries on an extremely
Yes.
strong team.
I agree.
Sometimes they benefit from just having a better team around them. So I'd like to see him pull off more performances where he really shows that he's one of the best. But as of yet, I just haven't seen that.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
All right. Let's jump into junglers then, if you want to start for us, Jake.
Yeah. So my number 3 jungle is my own jungle Echo, and he's really, really solid. He's got a wide champion pool, and he really applies a lot of early game pressure for us. Well, he's one of the big reasons we've ended all of our games at like 25 minutes. He just has such good map awareness and objective control, and he's always on top of those sneaky 10-minute Rift Heralds. So watch out, boys. My number 2 jungler I have is Black GTO, and he plays really, really consistently for Meat Beats, and he's shown different looks. He doesn't just play the carry style. He's played some Sedge and he's played some Nunu. I don't think he's picked up a win on either of those, but he looked really, really good in those wins. It is funny, yes. But in both of those games, he played well. It wasn't his fault they lost. He still applied pressure. His team kind of just faltered a little bit. But he does really well on the carry junglers. He's snuck in a few Karthus games in there. And then my number 1 jungle is Water Bear, and I think he's hands down the best jungler in the league, like not even close. He pops off consistently on Kha'Zix and Kayn, and he even has games on Kha'Zix, the one that comes to mind, where he fell behind in the early game, and he's still managing to pull out these really, really insane scores. So he's really impressive for that team.
Yeah, and for me, junglers, and you might want to change that on your thing, Maris.
Oh, yeah.
But number 3 for me was OGR Trodelor, who's kind of quietly, or not even that quietly, had just an extremely strong split so far. He's only played for 3 series out of the 4 for OGR, but they haven't lost a series with him in. I think a lot of that just comes from the amount of pressure he's able to put out with these strong early game junglers. He plays Olaf, Lee Sin, Jarvan, Rek'Sai, Xin Zhao, just so much early pressure. And I think he's just done a good job for facilitating OGR to win these early games and transition that into, beyond. Number 2, I have Shmez Jungler Echo. Again, just an extremely strong player. He's put out, just so many strong performances on these carries. Kane, Graves, Kha'Zix, Olaf, Nocturne. There's just so much there, and he's had such consistently strong performances on them. Even playing Echo Jungle, which I don't. How the fuck does he get away with playing Echo Jungle?
He has 2
But
million mastery points on that, so that's how.
I
That's
sort of
how.
assumed given the name, but it's just he's just shown that he's a force within the jungle and just has been playing so well. And then number 1, I also have Water Bear for Sensei Squad. This guy is just so consistently strong on these carry picks, and that's what I'm going to keep coming back to because I think I value carry picks quite a bit. He's playing this Kha'Zix, he's playing this Nocturne, he's playing Kayn, he's playing Rek'Sai, and he's just so consistently strong and so consistently getting his team ahead and winning early skirmishes. I've just been really impressed with his play. I definitely feel like he's the strongest jungler within the league.
Oh, sorry, that's me now. Yeah, let's jump into Mega Lane then. If you'll start us off, Kato.
Okay, Here, let me grab my list. All right, so for third place, I have Dylan Rue from OGR. And I guess I'm just gonna pick every single OGR player. Jesus. Um, who again has just been so consistently strong for this team. Um, he plays like Zoe and Yasuo and Lissandra and Cassiopeia and Oriana and Vladimir, and he just plays everything and has been so strong within team fights, within his lane, on these picks. And I think that he's also, just such a good part for this OGR team that has been so successful recently. Number 2, I have Midnight Slushy from Sensei Squad, who has played a lot of, Lissandra and Zoe and Cassiopeia, and just is able to put out so much pressure with these champions, and make picks and really just be a force within team fights. And the Sensei squad is just looking so strong. And I think a lot of that is from that mid lane and jungle synergy. And then first up, I have the Meat Beat Seismic, who is the carry for that team. We've really seen what this team looks like without him showing up, without him being there to carry for them. And I just think that as of yet, he's just been such a strong carry. Even when he's playing something like Zillion, he's still facilitating his team, just playing so well within the lane. Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
That's interesting. Okay. So well my third that's a surprise. All right, my third I had Dylan RU as well. And he's definitely I think he's the backbone of that team. Like every game you see from him is pretty high kills. He's the kill leader in Platinum. And he definitely kind of puts the team on the back some games, and other games he's getting some help. But he falters every now and then. Number 2, I actually have Renji, which is it's going to be a surprise to some people. I think the problem that I've had with putting him at number 1 is I think he's mechanically one of the better players, but he just doesn't play as a team. He has one of the lowest assist numbers in the entire league, and he doesn't really play with his team very often. It seems like he's kind of just farming mid lane, trying to beat the enemy mid laner, and then he just disappears. But I do think he's mechanically one of the better mids in the league. And then number 1, I have Midnight Slushy, and a lot of it could come from Water Bear, but I've seen equal insane pressure coming from him in all their games, and he just plays so consistently well on a wide variety of champions as you've listed. Like he's even made Rise work, which is a pick we haven't seen much work mid lane unless you're playing in the LCS. So it's really nice to see him doing really well for that team.
Yeah, and looking at your list, I think Renji specifically, if you asked me before the season who would be the best mid later in the league, I would say Renji, hands down. I've played with him before in Diamond Capped. If you ask me who I want on my solo queue team, I want Renji on my team. I think he's extremely good. But watching these GSM games, they're just so disjointed, and he just kind of runs it down sometimes.
He does.
And
other times though, what comes to mind is the series against us. I think he died like 5 times. And I think every single one of his teammates died more than 5 times in just one game against us. Not to be like like I said, he's kind of just there. I don't know. He's mechanically really good, but I haven't seen him play with his team at all. Like you're saying, they're really disjointed.
Yeah, I don't think that GSM's lack of success is because of Renji. But at the same time, there is just such a lack of success that it really hasn't facilitated him to show how strong of a mid laner I think he is. So I have trouble putting him near the top just because of that.
Yeah, I can agree. Yeah, I can see that.
I think it's interesting neither one of you opted for Zale at all on either of your lists. Which...
Hey, I told him because he picks Lulu, he can't be a number 1 mid.
He's number 7 on assist list. Number 7 assists per game. Also number 5 KDA. Is it just he'd be top support player, but he maybe not compared to the other mids?
I won't lie. I really wanted to put him at number 3 support because I think support's the weakest role in Platinum. but I don't know. I think he's solid, but I don't think he's mechanically better than these players. But I mean, I would definitely take him over these players. Like, I think he does exactly what we want him to do on our team.
All right, let's. Oh, that cut off at a weird point. Let's jump into 80 carries then. who would you like to support? I guess, Mister, I support my team.
Oh, okay. So number 3, I have Fargo from Kings of Baron, and to me, he's played extremely well this split, and it's maybe gone a little unnoticed because he's on Kings of Baron, but he's gone 9-3-20. He's popped off 14-3-6. He's done some really, really good things for this team. And I think having Mowgli in is going to help him tremendously because it's going to help relieve a lot of map pressure for him. And he's shown a lot of success in the bot lane, despite how kind of poorly his team's been playing. Hopefully they turn it around. Number 2, I have Boosted Asian from Sensei Squad, and I think he is one of the better. Well, obviously, I think he's one of the better ADCs. He started the season kind of rough, but he's really pulled it back with a lot of his more unique picks. Like Varus is something we haven't seen much of. I think it's starting to become more meta in the bot lane. He's even pulled out a Draven and kind of just ran at the enemy team and killed them. So he's doing really well down there. And then number 1, I have my own ADC, Blue Ashley. Aside from the 22 KDA, she's mechanically, I think, one of the best players in the entire league. Despite what you might see in the solo queue ranking, she just doesn't play it. And I think the biggest thing is her positioning in fights. Like it is so hard to pick her off if her 22 KDA says anything about it, and it's just really clutch to have an ADC that doesn't get caught out.
Yeah.
So,
And
Kato,
so for my list, for number 3, I had Boosted Asian, from Sensei Squad. He's just been able to put out so much damage in these fights and be just a massive carry for this team. The only reason I might not put him further up is just because I think the rest of his team is so strong. It's hard to see how much of his performance is from him versus from just being on a strong team. But still, just an extremely strong player for them in that bot lane. Number 2, I actually have Whitus from OGR. And this might be a little bit of my personal bias showing. I've played against Whitus. He's been like Diamond 1 before. This guy is so fucking good. He just got an OGR, 2 weeks ago. They haven't lost since he's joined. He's only played like Sivir and Ezreal, but in these games, he just positions so well and puts out so much damage. I think by the end of the season, we will definitely be seeing him as hands down one of the best AD carries within the league. I can't put him any higher because he's only played in half the games, but I still think he's just so fucking good. And then number 1, I also have Shmuz Blue Ashley. The 20 something KDA. Did you say 22 earlier?
It's 22.
It's kind of absurd. Just how much Blue Ashley's been able to do within this team. And just playing so safely. Even on champions that aren't the longest range. Even champions like Ashe or Sivir, where she's just not dying. And able to put out so much damage in these fights and apply a lot of pressure for this team. Just definitely a strong piece for this relatively strong Shmo roster.
Protect Madam President. That's what we like to call it.
All right, let's hear about some supports.
Quite funny.
Kato.
Okay, some supports. So support I definitely had trouble with.
Same.
Coming up with people who really stood out. So first up, I had for third place Spoon Crush from the Meat Beats, who quietly has been having a good season on support picks like Nami and Sona, and then even having high damage performances on champions like Zyra. Just showing a little bit of I don't know. She can or he can show multiple things in this lane, and I felt like that warranted being in that third place spot. Number 2, I had Shmuz. I support my team. I didn't know you'd be on the podcast, otherwise I would have left you off the list, of course. But no, for just a really strong Shmez roster, I support my team has just been so consistently facilitating Blue Ashley. You don't get that 22 KDA on your own.
I don't know about that one.
I definitely feel like I support my team has shown that they're one of the stronger supports within the league. And then number 1, I have Sensei Squad Shroom Bear, who has just been performing so well on shit like the Lulu and the Karma, and even pulling out Jarvan recently against iTown. Just such a strong player with a strong laner in Boosted Asian, and I've just been really impressed with what they've been able to do.
Yeah. So number 3, I also had Spoon Crush, but mine is a little different reasoning, and I feel a little bad saying this, but I don't really think any of the other supports in this league could even make an argument to be in the top 3. And I think the big thing with Spoon Crush is they don't die, and they're doing really well on the champions they're playing. But I think a big thing for me is just they're not getting caught out. Whereas a lot of the sports in the league have high death numbers from like getting caught out warding. I do that a lot, but we have a lot of supports in the league that die a lot or easy pickings in lanes. And Spoon Crush makes it through lane and has a high impact in the game. Number 2, I support my team or myself. The big thing is, like I said, getting caught out. I feel like I probably would be the best, but I definitely die a little too much. I overextend for some words, but I play a lot of the hard engage and I facilitate a lot for the team, and it's definitely noticeable compared to a lot of the other supports. And number 1, I have Shroom Bear. A lot like you said, Shroom Bear is just one of the strongest bot lanes playing the Lulu, playing the Karma. Very, I wouldn't say maybe quietly because of how well the team's doing, but doing really, really well down there. The Jarvan pick, I mean, they were against iTown, so maybe they're having a little bit of fun, but definitely just keeping the ADC alive, really facilitating the team with the Lulu, and extremely good at warding, unlike some of the other supports in the league. So,
Wait, are you
really well
blaming
done there.
iTown? The people who brought TMB to their knees after being 2-0?
TMB
Yeah.
didn't have seismic. It's not TMB.
No.
That was 100 Steves out there, man.
That doesn't fit my narrative. If you just nix that from the record, that'd be
Okay.
great.
Right. They got Quinn. That's why they won.
I don't think they did get Quinn.
Actually, they got Oriana, and their mid laner is extremely good on Oriana. That was
Ooh.
one of the things we knew going into the series. If we banned Ori from them, we could win. So
The secret strats leaked on stream.
I don't think it's secret if it's in the stats, my friend.
All right, our last topic then. Let's hear your MVPs, Jake.
Okay, well, number 3, I have Reptar, and the top laner for team name here, and I think that's because he's not quietly at all. Definitely their carry. He's when they're losing series, it's because he's dying a lot and he's not having the most pressure on his champions. When they're winning, he's playing picks like Kennen and Urgot, and he's hard engaging and doing a lot of damage, or Cho'Gath and just being a huge front line. I think he's definitely what wins them games, and he gets a shit ton of ganks because their jungler 100% realizes this. I think he got 10. I think he got 10 ganks in the last 2 games we lost. So they definitely pressure that lane a lot. My second MVP is Seismic. He wasn't in my top 3 mids, but I think he's definitely the most valuable player on that team, and he's one of the. Without him, they look completely different. And then when he came back, he didn't have the best performance, and you could see it in their loss 2-0. He has the spicy Wukong mid. He has some Ahri in there, some assassins. He's really what facilitates and snowballs their team. And number 1, I told you not to give him an ego. I didn't even put him in my top 3, but Ed Forius is my number 1 MVP because he is the backbone of our team. Like, one of the things that people wouldn't be able to see is he's the calm one when everything's going to shit or when we're having too much fun. He's the one that refocuses us. He's also our big tanky boy. He's playing the engage. He's just so consistently hitting flanks and hitting good ults and setting up fights for us that I don't think we definitely couldn't win without them.
All right,
Aw.
I can, let's hear your top 3 then.
Okay, so for me, the top 3 MVPs. Number 3 is Whitest for OGR. Again, they haven't lost since he's come in. This guy's gonna be a fucking monster.
Come
He's
on.
definitely the most
That's a
valuable
little
player on that
biased, dude.
team.
He went
I know.
1-1-5 and like 2-0-4 in their first series they won with the men. 4-1 and 12 and 1-1 and 5. Come on.
Man, the way he played Sivir and pressed W and then Q on those waves, it was amazing.
A little bit of
I don't think
bias,
I've ever seen someone play
A little
like
bit of
that.
bias, but I'm sure he'll mature into one of their better players. if he really was Diamond 1, then he's hard smurfing in this league. So
Yeah, no, I think maybe not last season, but the season before, he was definitely like D1 promos into Masters. And he's definitely played Diamond Camp before. Silverhammer might have pulled a few strings to get him into his plat team. Number 2, I have Karasuda for team name here. Even when he's not on Callista, but specifically when he's on Callista, but even when he's not, he's had some good performances on like Twitch as well as Thresh. I think that he does a great job of facilitating that team. And while, of course, Raraim Reptar is so strong in that top lane, I think Karasuda does a lot to, hold that bot lane down and really just be effective in that lane and be effective within the team. And then number 1, I have Seismic from TMB. I mean, we've seen in the last 2 weeks what happens to that team when he's not there or when he isn't having a great game. I think so much he is a carry, and it is the rock for that team that really holds them in place. And I think he's absolutely the most valuable player to any team within the league.
yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, thanks. I support my team for joining us. Do you have anything you want to say to your adoring fans?
First of all, Meat Beats, don't ever try to play Lulu mid again. We have the only person in the league that can play Lulu mid, and we're about to play Sensei Squad in, I think, an hour and a half, so that'll be fun. Good luck to them, because we're both going to need it. We have some spicy stuff planned, and I'm sure they have some spice, so it'll be a fun one.
All right, we'll definitely look forward to watching that on stream. Thanks again for joining us.
Yeah, have a good one, guys.
All right. Well, now we're going to be on to our next guest. I'm going to grab him in just a second, and we'll see if he made the jump.
Hello.
Yeah. So we have Cyrene joining us from Weird Flex But Okay for our Bilgewater stats. Welcome to the podcast, Cyrene. How do you feel your season's gone with Flex so far?
A lot better than I thought it was going to go. I honestly thought we were going to go 0-9 when we first made our team. And it's gone a lot better.
So any win above 0-9 is a good season then for Flex?
Well, we have a positive win rate somehow. Don't ask me how, but we have a positive win rate.
All right. Let's go ahead and jump in then with some top laners. I'm gonna close my eyes here while you guys pick these. But we'll start with Cyrene.
Okay, so for my third top laner, I have Meristematic. He's you're honestly just a rock for your team. You are entirely consistent all the way through. You may not make the flashiest plays in the game, but with a bunch of the top laners, which I feel aren't the best, you definitely are extremely consistent and can hold your own. For my second, I have Cyrene, which I hate tooting my own horn. I moved to top lane this split. Really, it was supposed to be Joey and I moving between top lane and mid lane, and after we learned that he doesn't really play tanks, I kind of moved up there. And I feel like I've been doing very consistent, and I've been a good rock for Flex as well. And for my last one, I have Hog Huntera. I know he's switching to the jungle, but from what we've seen from him, he's just done so well for his team. He set up so many different team fights and just has done really well for his team the entire way through.
All right. And then for me, for the top lane, number 3, and I have so much trouble with Flex. Because you motherfuckers move around so much. I don't know who's playing what. So I didn't know where to sneak this in. But I put in Secretly Iron 5 for your top laner. Obviously, you had a different Flex top laner up there.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
No, it's just funny. I think Joey's just done a great job, whether he's in top lane, whether he's not in top lane, being a great top laner for Flex. And then number 2, I had Thunderstorm from fucking team was he from?
G5.
G5, you're right. Who has just been so effective on tanks in the beginning of the split, and since then Kled, and even the Victor out of meta, which is a little strange, but making it work. And just has been a really strong top laner, and a league of top laners I don't think is particularly strong. He's done really well to cement himself as one of the top.
Yeah.
And then number 1, I have guy that goes by the name of ROTM Meristematic.
Please tell me more about him. I haven't heard about him too much.
I haven't heard a ton about him either. And in fact, in some games, he just doesn't really show up, and his team wins somehow. But in the games that he does show up, especially recently, even playing more carry style champions, he's done a great job of just consistently getting CS leads, consistently getting XP leads, and even map pressure leads, even without ganks from Hulk. He's done a great job in that top lane of just being the rock for Return of the Middle Sticks.
Yeah, I agree with that. Thunderstorm was also one of the people that I was debating putting on my list. I felt like Huntera just did extremely well. I know that they moved him to the jungle, but I felt like he really just did extremely well in his games when he was playing it.
For sure. I think that Huntera for me was, right up there with them.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump into some junglers. I think Kato, it's your turn to start.
Okay, so number 3 for me is probably someone that isn't going to be on literally anybody else's list. But I have Shinyo Horu from Hardstuck Gold. Now, if you just looked at scorelines, this guy probably wouldn't show up on any of your expectations for being one of the top junglers. But from actually watching the games, I think that he does a great job of pathing in the early game and applying pressure and even getting leads for his team. I think that he has a lot of trouble taking those leads and transitioning them into the mid game. Sometimes he gets caught out. He isn't the most consistent jungler in the world, but just based off of his pathing and where he is able to apply pressure, I think he's one of the better jungles within this league. And I think with a better team around him, he could definitely really show that. Number 2, I had Pasta Boy from High Octane Gamers, who for a strong hog team has just been so effective in applying early pressure in, transitioning this team into the mid game and just doing a great job of being a force for this team. And then number 1, I have ROTM's Hulk. He's just a carry for this team. He's so flippin' strong on so many champions. He's just so consistently able to apply pressure and carry for this team. Even when he's not playing carries, even when he's playing something like Zac, he still does a great job of applying pressure on a champion that doesn't usually gank early that much, but he's really able to make it work. And I've just been impressed with his play.
Yeah. So my list really doesn't look all that different except for the third place. So for my third pick, I had Sleeper Diamonds as devs intended. He's honestly done extremely well keeping his team in the game, getting his team ahead as much as possible. He's kind of a person that people sleep on a lot, seeing as he's mostly a Pantheon one trick, but he's done really well given he's really been playing like 2 champions. But he's done really well for himself, and I think he's done really well for his team as well. And second, I also have Pasta Boy for basically the same reasons as you. He's just done really well. And then in first, I also have Return of the Middle Sticks Hulk. Now, I want to talk about Hulk just for a second. I do kind of want to brag on him. I really do think he is probably one of the best junglers in our league, if not the best jungler in our league. He played a bunch of carries last split, moved over to tanks this split, and has just done so well with just managing both of them. And I really can't say more about it. He's just such a good jungler.
Yeah, no, I've definitely been impressed with Hulk, and I think that he's done such a great job of being such a strong carry and such a consistently strong player for our team. I think he's a lot of the reason that they've had so much success.
Yeah. Hulk just
and then just to answer the chat real quick, Gerbil is a name that came up a lot, and I feel like executing on a Mumu is kind of. I have trouble. Someone who can't clear their own jungle. I don't know how they could be one of the better junglers. That's all.
Yeah. I do have some things that I'd say, but I really agree with that. It's more of a he's not playing enough junglers, and when he is playing other junglers that he isn't familiar with, he doesn't do as well.
All right. Cyrene, if you want to get us started on some mid laners then.
Yeah. Okay. For my third mid laner, I have Flex Secretly Iron 5, also known as Joey. This is where I have Joey on my list. Again, he's done really well. He's moved into the mid laner. He's picked up a bunch of new champions as well. So he isn't just a quirky Cho'Gath 2-trick. And he's done really well. He helps our team flow really well. And he kind of just brings the jokes in with him while also bringing in a lot of good skill. In second, I have Sleeper Diamonds Xander of Astora. Really, the true reason why I think Sleeper Diamonds is doing as well as they are is because Xander of Astora is just such a consistent mid laner. Has a wide range of champions. The Talia pick is an interesting one, as well as the Aurelion Soul pick. And he's just done extremely well, just meshing with his team and doing extremely well carrying those games. And then for number one, I have Max's the Reverend Christ. I feel without Reverend Christ in the mid lane, Max would not be winning the games that they have been winning so far, and he just does super well. And I think he is probably the most valuable mid for Max.
All right.
For sure.
Aikedo?
So for my mid lane list, number 3, I had Tall X Guy from G5.
G5.
Yeah. This guy who is just so consistently strong in that mid lane, able to apply a lot of pressure, able to just do so well, even in just a 1v1 and creating CS leads and XP leads and pressuring the map. I think he's kind of quietly and kind of not even quietly doing extremely well this split. And I've just been impressed with his play. Number 2, I have Wing Nation from Return of the Middlesticks, who perhaps less dominant this split than he was last split. Still extremely good in lane, extremely good in team fights, extremely good at roaming around the map and applying pressure, and just has been so strong this split. And then number 1 is Max's the Revan Christ. This guy's just so fucking good, right? Like, he's carrying this team so goddamn hard. When they succeed, it really is through him. And he's done just such a great job of being that carry for that team. I just want to mention Xander of Astoria is definitely someone who I considered for my list, especially with that Talia play. I think that he's definitely one of the stronger mid laners within the league for sure. And him not being on my list, I don't think that can really discount that how effective he has been for his team.
That's the same thing with me with Wing Nation and Tall X Guy. The reason why I omitted Wing Nation from my list was his team is just filled with such good players. It's hard, like, he stands out compared to everyone else, but compared to his team, he really doesn't stand out as much. And that's why I ended up omitting Wing Nation. And then Tall X Guy was also someone that I had on and off my list for a bit.
For sure, and I completely understand that, especially Wing Nation, who is on such a strong team, and I think is sort of benefiting from having a strong lineup around him. I think part of my willingness to put him on my list is just from past experience and just knowing how strong he is within the mid lane. So when I see those flashes of when he does do really well, I might give him a bit more credit for it.
Yeah. When I was making my list, I had Winged as number 1 up until maybe 15 minutes ago. And I was like, these other laners have just done so much for their team as well.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right. Aikedo, if you want to start at number 3 on 80 carries.
For sure. So number 3 on 80 carries, I have Static Senpai from G5. And this player has just been so effective at being extremely strong for this team in lane, in team fights, just putting out so much damage. just really being such a strong player for G5, and I feel like he's a lot of the reason that this team is doing so well. Number two, I have Hogs Bug 7, um, who also has been playing extremely well this split, playing shit like Ezreal and Sivir, abusing Ezreal a little bit. And even picks like Yasuo, just showing that he's able to, bring different picks and still be effective on them. I think that he's just done extremely well for his team. And then number one, I have ROTM's Boar Rider Man, who, when he's not running it down, I think he's just so strong for this team, and is able to put out so much damage and really carry this team and just pick up so many kills. Sometimes he makes mistakes, sometimes he runs it down a little bit, but still just such great performances out of him.
All right, let's hear the counterpoint, Siren.
I agree with everything. That's the same list I have. I'm not gonna lie here. I agree, Static Senpai. In my personal opinion, Static Senpai is why G5 is winning most to all of their games. He is just doing so well for them. Bug 7, you spent a good amount of time talking about him, so he's done really well. He's carried most of his games. He's been the most consistent on his team, win or loss. And then Boar Rider Man, as someone who's been on his team before, it's live or die by Boar, honestly. Thankfully, with Return of the Middle Sticks, they have such good players on their team that if Boar feeds and runs it down, they will still win usually because they have such consistent players. But it's really live or die by Boar.
Yeah, and I see in the Twitch chat, Wing Nation is likening him to Yebienda of Diamond, but in gold. And I have to kind of agree. He's just so feast or famine, but the feast so far outweighs the famine that when he's able to get ahead, he's just willing to go balls deep and really carry a game.
Yeah. And really, he hasn't had much famines recently, to my knowledge. There may have been one or two, but other than that, he's done really well for himself.
I think ROTM has kind of benefited from having a weaker schedule. They haven't really played too many particularly strong teams, but definitely he's been playing extremely well in these games, and there hasn't been a whole lot of famine recently.
Yeah. They do have Hog coming up this week, so both undefeated teams are going head-to-head. And then they have G5, which is really basically locked in for third at this point. And then Flex and Sleeper Diamonds. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do. Yeah. And how they play in those harder weeks.
Yeah, agreed. I think the next few weeks will definitely paint a
clear
picture.
Hog is lost one game, but other than that, they were undefeated.
I wanted to jump in and just give a small shout out to Starfall from UCO. I think that he's a really good player. Maybe not on the list with these three, but just off of it. I just wanted to say that he's had a really good season on a team that hasn't been playing very well.
Yeah, Starfall's in Elo Hell right now.
Yeah, I mean he's playing with friends, so I get why he's doing it, and I commend it honestly. But it's definitely interesting to see. I definitely don't give him as much credit because he did really well. He plays extremely well as well. So I don't give him as much credit as he deserves just because his team isn't doing the best, but he's definitely one of the better ADCs for sure.
Yeah. So let's do some supports then. Siren, if you'll start us off.
Okay. So I actually had trouble choosing this. I was between Chex Mixin and Ace Ben 3. And I think I'm going to commit to Chex Mixin here. So my whole reasoning for this is, again, with Boar being feast or famine, she's just done so well with just helping Boar stay in the game. She will literally die for him, and has just done such a good job. In second, I have Max's Glitter and Gains. For a team that a lot of people, mostly thinking Hog, was sleeping on up until they lost to them. Everyone was saying that Max was going to be doing extremely bad. She stepped up. She she helps that lane so much and just does so much for her team. And then for one, I have Flex Vid, the one and the only, the shoutcaster of our division. I'm mostly giving this off to puts a lot of vision on the map. Used to average around 115 vision score per game. Just does really well. Is also fairly consistent. People are judging me in the chat, and I get it, but it's whatever.
All right, Aikido.
All right, so for me, number 3, I also have our team's Chex Mixon, who with this balls deep player in Boar Rider Man, she's been so effective with following him in and really facilitating him to carry. And she's even made some really sick plays on like Leona, doing some sick flash stunts to save Boar Rider Man. I've been really impressed with her play, and I think that she's a really strong contender in that bottom lane. Um, Number 2, I actually have Callistic from Sleeper Diamonds or Calastic. And this guy, especially on Thresh, has just been so effective for this team, and really has been a lot of the reason I think that they're in the position that they currently are, doing a bit better than I think we might have expected. I think a lot of it comes from his vision and just the picks and the laning that he's able to perform or able to do. I've just been really impressed with that play. And then number 1, I have Hogs Dem Shrimps. I feel like this guy's just extremely good, especially on the Leona and Tarek, which people continue to give him for some reason. He's just so effective. He doesn't die a lot. He still sets up a ton of plays. He's just really strong for this team, and I've been impressed with his play.
Yeah. So, my whole reasoning, so Classic was one of the people I was thinking of. It might be just because I have played with him a lot more that I might hold him to a bit of a higher standard. And so he was one of the people I was thinking about, as well as Dem Shrimps. I think Dem Shrimps is an extremely good support. He didn't, like, he stands out, but compared to other supports, compared to his team, really, he didn't really stand out to me. And then Classic, I guess I hold him to a bit of a higher standpoint. The whole basically Thresh or he struggles a bit was a bit of a factor for me when choosing that as well.
Yeah, but his Thresh is so good.
I mean, yes, but if you ban it, then he becomes just such a weak laner compared to all the other supports.
Yeah, I just wanted to say Glitter and Gains is definitely someone that I considered for my list. Glitter has just been so effective for this team that has otherwise been like a one carry team with the Revenkreis really spear pointing their efforts. I think Glitter and Gains has just done a great job really supporting that team and really facilitating Revenkreis.
Yeah.
Right. Our last category then, let's talk about most valuable players. Aikido, if you want to start us.
All right, so for most valuable players, number 3, I have Tall X Guy for G5. Talked about him earlier. I think he's just a really strong mid laner. I think that he does a great job within this team, and is able to apply so much pressure and get leads. And I've just been impressed with his play. Number 2, I have ROTM's Hulk. This guy is the carry for that team. He applies so much pressure early. He snowballs this game just so hard, and really makes sure that you see the feast side of Boar Rider Man instead of the famine side. I've just been really impressed with Hulk, especially when he's playing Evelyn and getting 20 plus kills. This guy's just really good. And then number 1, I have Revenkreis for Max. I think it's hard to put anyone else here just because of how much Max relies on this player and how much Revenkreis has really been able to step up and be the carry that this team needs on 1v9.
Yeah.
And again, I'm going to interrupt because I'm seeing confusion in the chat, but most valuable player is the player that is most valuable to their team, not necessarily the best player in the league.
Yeah.
So if you're a solid team with 5 solid candidates, probably not getting somebody on the list. If you have somebody stand out, they're probably on the list. There we go. Anyway, Cyrene, go ahead.
Okay, so for my third pick, I had Xander of Astora. I really think that he's one of the reasons why Sleeper Diamonds are winning as much as they are. Without him, I think they would be a much weaker team. And he just does a lot for his team. And second, I actually have Return of the Middle Sticks Boar Rider Man for the sole reason of any game that goes past 30 minutes, he basically takes control of unless he just got really far behind. He's done he just does a great job. And it really, when I was deciding this pick, it was between him and Hulk, just because they are just so both necessary for these games. And for number one, I also have the Reverend Christ. He's just done so much for his team. Like Xander of Historic, he is really the reason why Max is winning as much as they are. He does so much for them.
Agreed. And just the Boar Rider Man versus Hulk argument, I just wanted to say that Boar Rider Man does make the game so much about him, and oftentimes he is that carry. I think if Hulk were any less effective in solo carrying games, I would agree. But sometimes Hulk just fucking 1v9, puts everyone on his back, and you don't even see Boar Rider until halfway through the game because Hulk's just been destroying the rest of the map.
Yeah. So Bug, also, I was going to say that you are number four on my list.
Ooh.
All right. So that's all the Bilgewater awards. Thanks for joining us, Cyrene. Do you have anything you want to shout out or say to your adoring fans out there?
Thank you for having me on the show. I'm sorry I disappointed you, Bug. Please forgive me. Other than that, again, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. And we'll go ahead. We have one more division here to get to. And our special guest, let me drag him in, make sure he's here. All right. Did you make it successfully?
Yeah, we made it. We made it. It's
All right.
been a long, patient road in that other channel. So
Sorry about that. Thanks for sticking around and helping us out. So our last grouping, of course, is Shadow Isles, and our guest is the top laner from Tastes Like Armageddon, Toe Knuckles. If you want to go ahead and just, how do you feel like your season's gone to this point?
I'm just gonna say the record says it all. Undefeated at the midway point, so you can't really ask for much more than that, and we'll just see what the back half holds. So
All right. Give me 1 second. Let me get ready to type things.
I'm trying to make my answers a little bit quick since I know we're at the end of
All
a
right.
long podcast here. So
So we're gonna start with top lane. If you want to go ahead and start us off, Toe Knuckles.
for number 3, I have Jordan V69 from Oklahomies. I just feel like the guy has a strong lane phase, and a lot of the success that his team has had in individual games and in the series that they won kind of starts with Jordan V69. So I put him at my number 3. Number 2, I have another 69, Video Gamer 69. The dude has an incredible lane phase, applies so much pressure in the lane phase, and it really is something that kind of facilitates another part of his team that I'll talk about later in the podcast. Um, but his individual mechanics, and this is kind of what I went with top lane, uh, are second only to one other person, and that's my number 1, and that's Dillinger from UXR. Dillinger's the only top laner on the KDA leaderboard, which I think says a lot about himself. Top laners, we tend to be brawly and die a lot, so like the fact that he's still on the KDA leaderboard, and if you watch their games, he's such a big pressure point for their team, and a lot of the success they have runs through him. I know Goosey gets a lot of the credit for his flashy high KDA and big stats, but I really feel like Dillinger is the catalyst for what UXR does.
All right, Aiketo, where are you starting on your list?
All right, so number 3 for top lane, I also have Jordan V69. Someone who's just been able to do so well in that top lane with picks like Kennen, and even his Jax and Kled has just been so effective. And even most recently at nerfed Yorick, still able to be effective, and I've just been impressed with his play. And I feel like he's really strong for that team. Number 2, I don't have Video Gamer 69. I actually have Toe Knuckles from TLM, who plays stupid fucking shit. Who plays Trundle top? what the hell? But he makes
I'm-
it work. And I think that really one of the big things for me was watching him play Ornn into one of the other strongest top players in the league, Video Gamer 69. And even though Video Gamer 69 is playing a very strong and aggressive top laners, I think that Toe Knuckles was really able to hold the hold it down up there and really still be extremely effective and show up in team fights. Um, and then number one, I actually also had Dillinger from UXR, who has just been so effective. On picks like Ornn as well as Alawi and Scion and even Urgot, just doing so well in that top lane, applying so much pressure, and just been impressed with his play.
Yeah. So we can jump into jungle then. That'd be Akedo starting us, although I'm not prepped. But go ahead. I can
Okay.
catch up.
So number three for the jungle, I actually had I'm Heimel, um, who just in my mind has had a really strong um, a really strong season for SEAL Team 6. And I think that he and Yobero are really a lot of the reason that they've had the success that they have had so far, especially with picks like Jarvan and Nocturne. He's just been so good at applying pressure and really being a force to be reckoned with in the early and mid game. Number two, I had End, excuse me, from Zero AP, who has not the widest champion pool. It seems like he really seems to focus more towards like Xin Shao and Zach and maybe even a little Sejuani, but still has just been so effective for a team that's just been so strong this split. And then number one, I have Swampfire actually from UXR, who is playing again just off meta shit, playing like Jax and Olaf and Hecarim, but still being so effective, especially on that Jax pick. Just really being the facilitator in the early and mid game that UXR needs to be successful.
All right, for my number three, I also have I'm Heimel. I'll just say name a more iconic duo than Heimel and Baron Steels. Am I right? Um, number two, I actually have Swampfire at two. I think him and Dillinger actually work really well together, and they're a combination to create pressure in the early game for UXR. But one, I actually have Panther at number one. He has insane objective control. This is a factor I don't get to factor in with other players on my list, but he is a shot caller for us, so he takes on that pressure as well, and also is playing a lot of initiation type champions, but he's also opened up his champion pool this season to include carries as well, like Nocturne, Karthus, things like that, showing that he's not just a three trick with a Mumu, Warwick, and Zac. So he's really diversified and made himself a multi-threat that you can't just ban out and champ select, and you have to actually factor him into every single game. So
Yeah, I will say playing against TLP in the past, now TLM, you can feel the effect of Panther's shot calling while you play them. You just get hit by one of Panther's abilities, and all of a sudden the rest of the team just is there playing on whatever Panther's going in on. And it's not something that you feel with a lot of other shot callers, especially in Gold, where the calls are very split. But Panther's teams always have that hallmark of seeming to be on the same page. No one wants to talk. All right.
it was just a good segue to go right into mid lane. I just
All right.
go for it. So
Yeah.
Yeah, you did a great job, Maris. You really rounded it out there for us.
All right. Mid lane then. Toe Knuckles, if you want to start.
this one was really hard. I was deciding between four people for this one. My number three, though, I went with Chobero. Like Aikata was talking about with Heimel, him and Heimel are actually the driving point of SEAL Team 6, and a lot of their success hinges on those two. Gilberto slightly edged out my fourth person, who was Dr. Siggy from UXR. He's got slightly better stats than Siggy on a less successful team, which means a little bit more to me because it's easy to have better stats when your whole team's successful. So the fact that he's putting up similar numbers on a team that's performing slightly worse just spoke volumes to me. Number two, I put Pone Star from No Apologies. The guy's got the second best KDA among mid laners with, and it's not just he's a KDA player. He has almost 70% kill participation. So shout out to Pone Star. And then number one, my boy Seymour. Dude's out of his mind this season. Second in kills per game, top five in kills in the league, despite playing the least amount of games, and just owning every single map we play. So
All right, Kato.
All right, so number three, I actually have Seymour at number three. Like you were saying, he has just been so strong in that mid lane, and really one of the major reasons that TLM TLM has been so successful. Sorry, at this point, everything's just fucking letter soup. But no, especially with picks like Vagar, and really showing what he can do on like Cassiopeia, really just a strong force in that mid lane. Number two, I actually have Pone Star, who, like he had said, is just has been so strong for this No Apologies team that has been so effective so far this split. And I think that he's one of the major driving forces behind that. In the number one, I actually have Yo Barrow from SEAL Team 6, who I've just seen some of his plays, especially on LeBlanc. That guy's so fucking sick. He's just been really impressive to me, especially on a team that he doesn't have as many tools at his disposal. With how effective he's been able to be on, um, a team that perhaps isn't as strong as other teams. I've just been really impressed with his play, and I feel like that warranted first.
I think it's interesting though that we got the same three players. We just flipped the order.
Yeah, it's definitely definitely interesting.
All right, Kato, you want to start us off on some 80 carries?
Oh boy. All right, so for number three, I have. Let me find my list. Uh, Sorry, Scuff Stream. I have Goosey from UXR, who has been putting up insane KDAs on especially safe picks like the Caitlyn. Has just been so effective for this team in putting out damage and really being a major damage source and a major carry for this team that has been really effective and has had really good performances so far. Number two, I have No Mind from No Apologies, who also has just been such a carry for this team. Yeah, I'll keep talking about Zero AP, I guess. It's just even with more aggressive picks, like the Lucian, like the Callista, has just been a really strong force for this team. And then number one, I actually have GSM Levi's from TLM, who has just been so strong and has had such a great laning phase and put out so much damage. Just really impressed with his play.
All right, Toe Knuckles.
All right, for number three, I also have Goosey. I also want to while we're talking about ADCs, I want to say that ADC is probably the hardest list to do because there's so many good ADCs on Shadow Isles. Like Gara of the Sands is good, even though his team isn't very successful. Same with Silverme Timbers. Paladin's another one you got to throw in there. A good player. Alarm. So I just want to shout out all the Shadow Isles ADCs. I think they are all strong. But anyway, back to my list. Goosey number three. Um, Good ADC on a good team. He isn't asked to do quite as much, I think, as the top two on my list, but he's still doing what he needs to do to make sure UXR wins. Number two, I actually put Levi's at number two. Um, Having a great season. He's my teammate, does very well, consistently strong performer, and plays a lot more picks than just Caitlyn. So that's a credit to him as well. And then number one, I got No Mind. The dude's a beast, straight up. And I don't even have to talk about stats or anything. Just watch Zero Apologies games and you'll know why. No Mind's number one.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo that when looking at Shadow Isles, there were about 5 or 6 80 carries that I considered when looking for the top three, and it's definitely a stacked position within this conference.
All right, let's talk about supports then for a little bit. I think Toe Knuckles is first.
All right, number 3, I actually have Celercia from OSU. I think she's having a very good individual season despite her team struggling. She's top, I think she's 4th in kill participation, over 75% uh, involved in her team's kills. And like, I think the stats on the leaderboard are a disservice to supports because there's not even anything about vision, and a lot of the assists and things like that are relying upon your team doing well. So I think she deserves a top 3 spot, even though her team isn't doing well. Number 2, I got Zister. Uh, Guy is leading the league in assists, 3rd in assists per game, and top kill participation in the league. So if you do want to talk about stats, Zister is the guy that you go to for that. And then number 1, my boy Spade. Like, again, it goes back to the no mind thing where, like, if you don't watch our games, then you may miss out on the impact that Silver Spade has on the game. But he controls the lane, he controls vision around objectives. The guy just has so much influence over the entire map that, like, you're crazy not to put Silver Spade 10 as the top support in all of Gold Cap, much less Shadow Isles.
As I casually come in and not put him at the top support.
Well, you're boosted, Ikato. That's why.
I
So.
know, man. I'm good as fuck. My number 3 is actually Silver Spade. Um, it's like everything you just said, just an extremely strong support. And I think it's harder for me to put Silver Spade as higher just because of the caliber of team that he's already playing on. I think it's harder for him to differentiate himself, and that might just be, my fault. Then I should look more there. But he ended up landing number 3 for me. Number 2. Uh, and this is the person that if you don't watch the games, this sounds like it's out of left field. Especially if you just look at stats, he's had some bad games. But just watching the games and watching how much pressure he's been able to put out in lane, number 2 for me was actually UXR Duvranga, who coming in, I did not expect Duvranga to be one of the stronger performers on this team, coming in with a lot of people who are ranked higher than him or who have had more success in the past than him, especially since he's coming in as an AD carry main. I think that his effectiveness, especially on picks like Galio and even some great Thresh games, I think especially in lane, he's able to put out so much pressure and has just been so effective for that team and for that bottom lane.
I will
And
say I looked at Dubronga when making my list just to stop on him real quick. The one point that I had against Dubronga is he's one of the few ADCs in the league like that's on a playoff contending team where his kill participation was actually lower than his ADCs, meaning his ADC to me is making a lot of individual plays that he's not involved in. And so I use that as a knock against him, but he was in that top 4. I just picked the other 3 to edge him out. So
For sure, and I definitely understand that, and I think that that's a valid point. I just think in a lot of the games that I have seen, just the plays that he's able to make and the pressure he's able to put out in lane just kind of edged him out for me. Um, and then number 1 for me was the Exister from No Apologies. This guy's Thrush is so fucking good. This guy is just extremely good in lane. He's extremely good for this team. I just have been extremely impressed with this play.
All right. I lost my. Sorry, hold on. Scuff stream again. Our last, our last award of the day is going to be MVP for Shadow Isles, and I believe Aikato gets to start this one.
Oh boy. All right. So for me, number 3 on the MVPs was actually, let me find that. The White Shadow from which fucking team did I play on?
Landsnack.
Landsnack. Yeah, sorry, I have all my shit mixed up. He's been playing mid lane for Landsnack. I think that he's a lot of the reason that this team that didn't really expect a whole lot from has had some amount of success. I think that when they win, it is through him being extremely effective, putting out a lot of damage, putting out a lot of pressure, and doing well within his lane. And I think that he's definitely the bright spot for me on that lineup. Number 2 for me was Swampfire, who has just been so effective for unnecessary roughness. We talked about it earlier, especially on picks like Jax and Olaf, and he's able to put out so much pressure and just really be a force for this team. And then number one, I actually have Joe Barrow for SEAL Team 6. Again, I feel like so much of that team's success is from Joe Barrow. I think that he's just so effective within his lane. He really outclasses a lot of other players, and I've just been really impressed with his play. And I feel like a lot of SEAL Team 6's success hinges upon him.
Hey, Maris, real quick before I do my MVP list, did you drug test candidates before they came on this? I'm just wondering. I'm just wondering. Like, you should next time, but anyway. All right, I digress. Number 3 for me is actually a player that didn't make any of my top 3 lists. Is actually January from Yellow Jackets. The reason why is if you look at Yellow Jackets' success, their wins come off the back of January doing well, and he's playing well and having good games. And if you look at when he gets shut down against some of those other 3 ADCs I put in my top 3 that kind of just edged him out, when he's run into those ADCs, Yellow Jackets haven't had as much success. So I think he's extremely important to the Yellow Jackets and their success. Number 2, I actually put Seymour number 2. Um, I debated back and forth with him and my person for number 1 for a long time, but it legit just came down to if you take X player off their team, which team hurts more from it? And I feel like TLM, I feel like we would still be a playoff team, maybe not undefeated, talked about as upper echelon or whatever, untested. I don't know, whatever words are getting thrown around about us these days. But I feel like we would still have a fighting chance to make some noise. Whereas my number 1, I put No Mind. There are other good players on No Apologies, but he makes no apologies. And so I feel if you take him off No Apologies, they still would be a good team, probably fighting for a playoff spot, but definitely wouldn't be undefeated at the halfway point. I don't think, and they'd be a totally different team. So I think the guy deserves all the credit in the world.
Yeah.
And like it stinks because like I know like MVP, I was told specifically like players that are important to their team, not just good individual seasons, but like I think both Seymour and No Mind fit both of those qualifications. So that's why they're
Agreed.
top 2. So
And I think for me, when looking at our qualifications for most valuable player, to their team specifically, it's harder for me in general unless someone's extremely stand out, to put it to someone who is on a significantly stronger team. Which is why I have my list here, and obviously we're very different in our lists. These are just players that I feel like really are key to the successes of their team.
it is nice to see 6 different players represented though. Like it just shows the overall strength of like the league and getting 6 different players recognition. So that's pretty awesome. So
Yeah, so that's going to be it for our really fun award show for the mid-season. Thanks, Toe Knuckles, for joining us again. Do you have anything you want to say to your adoring fans out there?
um so I don't know. I don't have anything to say, man. Like I said, I kind of said it in my intro. Happy to be undefeated at this point. We'll see how the back half goes. Going for the undefeated season though. So we'll see.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next up is going to be the return of the regular streams. Saturday, catch Gold Capped at the regular times, 11 for Shadow Isles and 4 p.m. for Bilgewater, and then Platinum and Diamond on Sunday. We'll be back next week with a recap of what should be a pretty interesting week 7. A lot of undefeated matchups and things like that. And yeah, we'll try to do better next time. Thanks, guys, for watching.
So, Maris, when do I get my drug test in the mail? Oh, you fucking love.
Oh, I'm not here. Oh. I'm not here? I am here. I still don't have a stream ending made. Should maybe do that at some point.